The main character's name is Duan Fei, and he was just a college student until 20 years ago when zombies filled the world and his life went to hell. In recent years, he has done nothing but try to survive in a new environment full of danger. Death terrified the main character, but much more terrible was the gradual realization that after it he would not be able to meet his family, his only family, which he abandoned to survive alone. There wasn't a day when he didn't regret it. The guy decided that he would no longer run away from dangers. If he dies, it means finally going to hell to atone for his sins. The guy fought with all his might. Well, there wasn't a scratch on his enemies. He realized that he really was a weakling. The guy began to ask his enemy to kill him so that he would end his unbearable life. Darkness fell. Then the guy suddenly woke up. He was sitting on the bed in his room, alive and unharmed. The guy understood that this was impossible, because his house was destroyed 20 years ago. The guy inhaled the air and did not feel a hint of the smell of blood and decomposing flesh. Duan couldn't understand what was going on and decided that he was dreaming all this. He looked at the bedside table and saw a framed photo on it. It was a photo with his sister that was taken 20 years ago. Then the guy went with his sister to the beach in order to fulfill her dream, to see the ocean. The guy got out of bed and thought that everything was very plausible. He was no longer sure that this was a dream. Looking in the mirror, he saw himself and realized that he had returned to the past. Suddenly, the guy abruptly ran out of the room and ran to his sister. He decided that if he really went back in time, then his sister should still be in the house. The guy clearly remembered the day when everything went to hell. A low-level zombie got into their house. The guy was so cowardly and scared that his knees buckled. As a result, he abandoned his sister, who was not even able to run away since she was moving in a wheelchair. The guy regretted it all his life and since then hated himself for cowardice. Duan decided that if he really returned to the past, then he vows to protect his sister Zenu and his family even at the cost of his own life. The guy went down to the first floor and looked at the date. It was the 20th of December 2012, and there was a letter from college on the table. The guy realized that he really went back 20 years ago, which means his younger sister is still alive. The guy already thought that he would never see her again. He opened the door from his sister's room and saw her. She asked her brother about what had happened. He began to cry and beg forgiveness from Zenu. He hugged her and began to sob. The girl told the guy that everything was fine and assumed that he just had a nightmare. The guy began to apologize to the girl for not protecting her, and she died through his fault. Zenu began to calm her brother and said that she would protect him. However, the guy abruptly stood up and said that now he definitely would not allow anyone to touch his sister with a finger. Suddenly, he looked at his watch and decided that now was not the time to remember the past. He told his sister that he had to go on business and ordered her to stay at home. The girl took off her hair clip and gave it to the guy. They made a promise to each other that every time the guy leaves, he should take her hairpin with him, and when he comes back alive and unharmed, he should give it back. The guy said that he would definitely come back and attach a hairpin to her hair with his own hands. Zenu always felt inferior because of her disability and was very ashamed. And the guy promised her this to give some kind of guarantee. The apocalypse began on the morning of December 21st, which means that there are less than a day left. No one knew why the catastrophe swept the whole world in just an hour. About half of the people turned into zombies. The animals mutated into monsters and everyone they bit became like them. Duan decided that since he had returned to the past, he could not sit idly by. The main problem after the apocalypse began was resources. A small convenience store was more valuable than a human life. Therefore, Duan's first step was to prepare supplies. The guy went outside and realized with horror that in less than half a day this prosperous city would turn into a terrifying land of death. The guy was standing in the store and choosing his favorite cookies for his sister. The girl at the checkout awkwardly asked the guy if he wanted to buy more because he scored a lot of everything. The guy said he was almost done and asked the girl if they still had cookies from this manufacturer in stock, because he wanted to take everything. The girl was surprised and asked the guy about how he would carry his purchases home. In response to this, the guy said that he had already called the truck. The driver told the guy that he had collected a lot of food and his truck was full to the brim. He asked Duan about why he needed so much food and jokingly suggested that it was in case of an apocalypse. The guy seriously replied that this was exactly the case. The driver laughed and told Duan that he was funny. Duan saw a photo of the driver with his wife and daughter in the car. The man said that his baby turns 3 years old today and he is sad that he can't come home right now and spend time with them, because he has too much to do. Workaholics like him are always working to the point of pain and abrasions. After the man helped Duan unload all the products, he asked him to give a good rating. Suddenly, Doon stopped the driver and told him to take a box of cookies. He said he looked at his daughter's photos and decided she loved them. Doon also added that he paid the man double the price, so now he can finish working and go to his family to spend time with them. The man was very grateful to Doon. He told the driver to go home, protect his family and not leave the house today. On the way, the driver looked at the cookie box and thought that Doon's words were strange and that all rich people were so strange. As a result, the driver laid out a route to the next customer instead of going home. In the evening of the same day, Doon was already fully preparing weapons in case of an apocalypse. He also took a paper card, because when everything starts, the internet will fly off and there will be no use from phones at all. Doon's sister came to the room and asked him with an angry and indignant look about what he was doing. She turned on the light in the room and asked her brother about the mess he had made. The girl yelled at the guy, saying that she received a notification about the withdrawal of all the accumulated money, and asked the guy about what the hell he was doing. Doon said that if he told his sister that the apocalypse was coming, she wouldn't believe him. The girl, hearing this, decided that Doon was ill and had a fever, but touching his forehead, she said that there was no fever and asked the guy if he was alright with his head. Doon got a little angry, but then cleared his throat and said that it didn't matter if she didn't believe him, because in a few hours she would see everything for herself. He told the girl that they needed to use the chance to enjoy the clean air and peaceful sky above their heads for the last time. The girl said that her brother today is kind of strange and carries all sorts of nonsense, but this is the first time she sees him so serious. She even began to think that all the guy's words are true and she has no reason to believe in his words, but her intuition tells her the opposite. The time of the first stage of the apocalypse revelation has almost come, and it will last all week. By the end of this stage, 90% of the population will die or turn into zombies, and those lucky ones who survive will continue to watch the arrival of full evolution. Doon hoped to be among them. It was midnight. Some drunk man standing on the street looked at the phone screen and saw a message from the boss that he needed to return to the office. The man was very angry when he suddenly heard a dog barking. The man got angry and threw the phone at the dog. The animal got angry and attacked the man. So the zombie apocalypse began. Zenu watched all this from the window and asked her brother about what was going on and why all the people were throwing themselves at each other. In response, he said that people had turned into zombies and the revelation stage of the apocalypse had already begun. At that moment, there was a loud knock on the door. Someone outside was calling for help and asking Doon Fei and Zenu to help him. The sister recognized by the voice that it was Mrs. Huan. The guy realized that everything was happening the same way as then. Last time, because of Miss Huan's screams, he inadvertently let her zombie husband in. And because of him, he fled in horror, leaving his sister. It all happened again. The nurse has already opened the door to the apartment. She told Mrs. Huan that everything was fine and she could enter the house. However, her zombified husband immediately burst in instead of her. My sister was scared. My brother was remembering the past at that moment. He recalled how it was in a team with some people. One of the men asked him why he had such a dissatisfied face. In response to this, the guy said that they have known each other for a long time, and it would be time to understand that he is always like this. In response, the man said that it was true and he had never even heard Doon laugh. After that, the man told the guy not to worry, because they are still a rear team. He added that it can be assumed that they are safe, because it is the task of frontline soldiers to deal with a high-level zombie. In the end, everything turned out to be completely wrong. The zombies made their way to the rear, and the team was trapped. The chief told everyone that this battle was very important, and they had to keep the formation. The rear was ordered to concentrate on detaining the zombies and buy time for the remaining team to escape. At that moment, Doon's friend abandoned him. Now the guy understood what despair and helplessness were, and what his sister felt when she looked at the guy's back. At that moment, the guy returned to the present again and began to save his sister, because he got another chance and would not allow that tragedy to happen again. The guy was given a chance to correct all his mistakes, and he will use it. Doon threw something at the zombie and it flew away. After that, the door to the house closed. The girl tearfully asked her brother about what happened to Mr. Huan. The guy replied that the man turned into a zombie and told the girl not to worry, because he would protect her. The guy ordered the girl to stay in place and close her eyes, and he will be back soon. These were the first lower zombies that appeared in this chaos. They have no intelligence and are driven only by hunger. Not even a day has passed since the guy fought with a high-level zombie, and even if he is not so strong physically, he will definitely have enough to kill some scraps. The guy was dealing with zombies, when suddenly his sister opened her eyes and stopped doing. As a result, the guy killed a zombie and began to calm his sister. The girl began to cry and say that she was scared. She asked her brother about how they should be now. The guy replied that, whatever happens, he always protects his sister and she can be sure of it. Suddenly, the guy heard a voice that said that he had killed a zombie and received 3 evolution points. Evolution points are used to activate the system. The guy couldn't figure out what kind of voice it was, but the girl said she didn't hear anything. Suddenly, the guy disconnected and found himself in some place. He couldn't figure out what was going on and where he was. The guy saw a kind of sanctuary in front of him. Several large giants, similar to humans, sent a lot of messages to the guy's head. The evolution system has been activated. The owner's initiation process has started. The guy ended up in some kind of cocoon. It seemed to him that his body was being torn into small pieces. A message about the study of genes came out, and after that a complete gene match was found. The system turned on the rearrangement of genes. After that, the process of combining the genes was successfully completed, and the recognition of the owner was completed. The guy felt the power overflowing his body. According to reports, this place is a tree of evolution. It enhances the guy's genome, allowing him to improve. The guy thought that it was just incredible, because he feels a certain connection with the tree. For development, you need to pay with evolution points, and they, in turn, are earned by killing zombies and are spent by the system to strengthen his skills. The guy can choose what to pump: strength, speed, detection skills, combat skills, survival skills, and so on. The guy started the system by spending 1 point. In the apocalypse, any increase in strength increases the chances of survival, so the guy did not hesitate. The guy has experience and strategy, but physically he was very weak, so first of all he should have pumped his strength. The guy increased his strength by using 2 points. This time, when the guy has the tree of evolution, he will not let that tragedy happen again, and will protect his sister no matter what it costs him. Suddenly the guy woke up. He was sitting on the sofa, and Zenu was lying at his feet. She was very glad that her brother finally woke up. She said that he scared her very much when he suddenly fainted. The guy replied that most likely it happened just from fatigue. The girl began to cry. The guy began to calm her down, and reminded her that he would always be with her and would not let her get hurt. The guy thought that he needed to clear the perimeter to make sure his sister was safe and deal with Ms. Huan's corpse, otherwise even more zombies would come to this place. Duan saw blood in the corridor, left over from the corpses. A trail of blood led down the stairs. The guy did not go downstairs and returned to the apartment. He opened the closet and looked at his clothes and realized that all of them had become too small for him and the clothes themselves were somehow too bright. The guy thought that he was probably too old for this. Thanks to the tree of evolution, Duan has grown and his body has become stronger thanks to a change in the gene. This is a real help for future battles. At that moment, Zenu came into the room and gave her brother her father's clothes. The guy thanked the girl and put on his father's white shirt. Zenu said that there is complete chaos outside and she is thinking about how her parents are there. So much had happened, and the girl wondered if they were okay. Duan and Zin were abandoned by their parents when they were 10 years old. From that moment on, they started sending money every year. It was the only thing that hinted at their existence. In his previous life, after the zombie apocalypse began, Duan tried to find them for about 10 years, but he never found any clue. The guy told his sister not to worry and added that the parents would take care of themselves. He also said that their safety is much more important now. The girl looked at her brother and said that she still did not believe that he had grown so much overnight. Duan replied that he himself did not understand how it happened and suggested that it was just hormones. Duan decided that it was better not to tell the girl about rebirth and the tree of evolution. In response to this, Zenu said that the guy in vain thinks that she will believe him. The guy tried to get away from the question and said that he needed to move away. The girl indignantly asked the guy about where he was going, because it was very dangerous outside. The guy had already started to explain himself when the girl interrupted him and said that she was very scared because the whole world was transformed in an instant. The girl was afraid that because of her illness, she would become a burden to Duan. She said that her brother is now her only family and she is afraid that he will leave her too. The guy sat down on one knee and leaned over to his sister. He apologized for making her feel that way. He said he would just look around and check if he was safe in this place. He also added that if he doesn't get rid of them now, it will cause problems in the future. The guy continued and said that he did not want to be in Aunt Huan's place and see if there were other survivors, because in such a difficult time you need to stick together. The girl gave the guy her hairpin and told him to promise to come back for lunch. The guy thanked the girl for letting him go and said that he would definitely return by the promised time. The girl wished her brother to be careful. The girl finally told Duan that he should return in one piece. The guy thought that the 13th floor is permanently closed, which means that he will start from the 12th, and will go down. The guy thought that if he understood everything correctly, then in order to get evolution points, he would need to kill as many zombies as possible. On the 11th floor of the landing, the guy found several corpses. A zombie was standing over them and eating their brains. The monster attacked Duan. The guy decided that if his strength has advanced to the 2nd level, then he is able to kill zombies with one blow. Duan tried to do it and he succeeded. After that, a message appeared that Duan had killed an entry-level zombie and would receive 1 evolution point. The guy realized that 6 evolution points are needed to increase the strength, which means he needs to kill 5 more zombies. 10 points are needed to improve the mental spirit. In his past life, Duan had heard about using a mental spirit. In those days, people could only resist mutated monsters with the help of awakened ones with various mental spirit skills. When someone pumped this characteristic, they received abilities and became a first-class warrior. The guy decided that, judging by the increase in the strength coefficient, the points he needed to improve his mental spirit could be 7, 8, or even 10 times higher. To get the skill, you need the 10th level of mental spirit. The guy decided that he could not score so many points now, so he would have to postpone pumping his mental spirit until better times and while he pumped dexterity and detection. Thus, the guy now needed to kill as many zombies as possible. The guy entered one of the apartments, the door to which was open, and saw signs of a struggle. He saw a lot of blood stains on the floor in the bathroom. Entering the bathroom, he found the girl lying in the bathtub. He looked at her and thought that her skin was normal color and she didn't look like a zombie. Suddenly, the guy heard the sounds of zombies behind him. The monster had almost bitten Duan, but he turned around and killed him with one blow. The guy got another evolution point again. Duan exhaled and realized that he was in a dangerous position and didn't even notice how the zombie had crept up on him. The guy decided that he should not relax his vigilance, because even if the tree of evolution improved his skills, it did not make him immortal. Duan left the apartment and realized that he had to hurry, because he still had 10 floors left. The guy remembered that Uncle Lee lived on the 3rd floor. The guy knocked on one of the apartments and asked if there was anyone in it, but no one answered him. After that, he said that if there was no one in the apartment, then he broke down the door. The girl opened the door. She said it was getting late and asked the guy what he needed. Duan replied that he was from apartment number 1202 and introduced himself. He said he thought the girl was already aware that the world was filled with zombies. To protect the family, the guy looked around the neighborhood. The girl replied that everything was clear to her and it was safe in the apartment, so he could go on. The girl apologized and said that she needed to rest. After that, she was about to close the door, but Duan held her with his foot. He said that he needed to personally make sure that there were no zombies in the apartment and asked the girl to let him inside and not force him to use force. The girl agreed and opened the door. The guy went inside and didn't see any zombies. Duan saw a picture of a girl with her husband and son on the wall. He asked her where her family was. The woman replied that her son was at school, and her husband left to meet him and they still haven't returned, which makes it very hard for her. The girl crumpled the fabric of her skirt from nerves. She told the guy that if he was done, she asked him to come out, because the presence of a man with a knife in her blood scared her. Duan said he understood her, apologized and told her to take care of herself. The guy decided that, apparently, this apartment is really safe and does not even smell of blood. He was about to leave when he suddenly heard some sounds from the next room, the door of which was closed. The guy said he could hear sounds from the bathtub and asked the girl if there was anyone else in the house. The girl replied that she was completely alone in the house. Then Duan said he needed to check the bathroom. The girl asked the guy to leave and said that maybe it was just a cat making noise. She tried in every way to stop Duan from entering the bathroom. The guy opened the door a little and felt a strong smell of blood. To look inside, he saw something. Looking inside the room, he found that it was not a bathroom, but a children's room. He saw a little boy there who had already turned into a zombie. At that moment, the woman picked up a bat and wanted to hit the guy on the head, but he reacted in time, and the woman missed. As a result, they both ended up in the room. Duan asked the woman about what she was doing. At that moment, the zombie child attacked the guy. Duan thought that zombie children are very fast, though not strong. The guy began to fight with the child. At that moment, a woman stood between the guy and the child and said that she would not allow her son to be touched. Duan replied to the woman that she needed to wake up. He also said that this was no longer her son, but a zombie who was there. If she continued to protect him, she herself seemed in danger. The woman started crying and said she didn't believe it. She also added that she thinks her boy is just sick. She needs to wait until the right medicine is invented and then he will recover. Therefore, the woman said that she would not let the guy kill her son. While the girl was saying all this, she was standing with her back to her son. At that moment, he plunged his hand into her chest and killed her. After that, the guy quickly began to run away from the room. The boy's mother in the last minutes of her life begged the guy not to kill her son, because she believed that he would definitely recover. In response, Doon said that if he turned, then he could not be saved, and he could not let the boy walk the streets. After that, the guy killed the boy. Doon thought that he could not pardon the zombie because he had to protect his sister. Going down to the 10th floor, the guy saw a coach who lives on the 5th floor and wondered what this man was doing here. Doon realized that the coach was coming to the 10th floor with the smell of blood. In the hands of the big man was a dumbbell. He swung it to hit the guy, but he managed to dodge. When there is a transformation into a zombie, the strength of the infected increases greatly, so if a person was initially strong, then he becomes an even more difficult opponent. The guy realized that even with the 2nd level of strength, he would not be able to defeat this enemy. Doon realized that he was facing another dangerous zombie and now the guy has problems. Before awakening, people were most afraid of zombified animals. Speed, sense of smell, hearing, all these characteristics make them incredibly dangerous. In front of the guy there was one big man with dumbbells in his hand and a big wolf. Both were zombies. The guy fought with them as best he could and almost died. All this fight attracted zombies from the lower floors, and the situation was getting worse. But now the main task of the guy was the guy deftly dodged the attacks of both zombies, but he understood that he did not have enough strength to overcome, so he needed to take them away from his sister and then sort it out. The guy ran down the stairs to the elevator, but found that several dozen zombies were coming at him. The guy was surrounded from all sides. He decided that it would not be difficult for him to cut through a large crowd of weak zombies. He came on behalf of everyone and ran into someone's apartment. The guy realized that he had killed zombies, but did not get evolution points from them. The guy suggested that maybe he needed to finish them off. It also seemed to the guy that zombies are developing too fast and their strength has already gone beyond the first stage. It seems that this time evolution was happening at a breakneck speed. Suddenly, the guy was trapped. At the door to the room in which he was standing, there was the same zombie trainer and dog. The guy hid behind the bed, but the zombie found him anyway. He struck a very strong blow to the guy, from which he flew down several floors. Doon lost consciousness. He thought that it was over and that he was still a loser, even after rebirth. He also thought that he hoped that he could make up for the mistakes he had made in the past. But it seems that shit is always shit, no matter where it is shoved. However, his younger sister appeared in the guy's memories, and he decided that he would not stay for nothing while his sister was alive, especially since this time he has an evolution. The guy began to improve his speed, simultaneously killing zombies. The guy earned enough points to pump up speed and strength. He ran to his younger sister and hoped that she would wait for him. At that time, the girl was in the apartment and was sitting opposite the door. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. The girl asked about who was behind the door, but I didn't answer anything. She wasn't sure if her brother was standing there or someone else, but she decided to open the door anyway. The girl opened the door a little and saw 2 zombies behind it. At that moment, Doon appeared and killed them. The sister didn't see the zombie right away and closed the door. The guy told his sister to open the door and let him in. His sister asked him why he didn't answer right away, but he said there was a reason for that. The sister asked her brother if he had done everything he wanted and if he was okay. He told his sister to close the door and not open it to anyone, despite the fact that she would hear. The girl asked her brother about what happened, but he did not answer her. The guy turned around and stood in front of a huge zombie trainer. He said he had had enough and the guy wouldn't let the monsters take a step. The moment the zombie took one step forward, the guy ran over and cut off his leg. At that moment, the dog appeared, but Doon deftly dodged his attack. In parallel with this, he hit the zombie, but he got up and began to move as if nothing had happened. The guy was surprised by this, but decided that this was a good opportunity to test the strength of the 3rd level. The guy ran towards the monster and stabbed him right in the chest. After that, an alert appeared that the guy had killed a level 6 zombie and received 6 points. Doon was glad that he was able to do this. He managed to protect his sister from zombies. However, there was still a long way ahead of him. There is very little time left before the crazy evolution of zombies. Then they will begin to mutate at an incredible speed, so the guy needs more evolution points. Doon thought that even if he didn't know anything about the tree of evolution, it would make him stronger. The guy decided that he needed to pump with his help, and thanks to the knowledge about his past life and the tree of evolution, he would be able to change the course of history. The hope of humanity is not lost. If in a previous life people in despair huddled in corners at the sight of infected, then this time, Doan decided to change the situation. As a result, the guy went down from the 11th floor to the 1st and killed all the zombies in the house. When he went outside, he realized that it was well past noon and his sister must be very worried, so he should go back. Arriving at the apartment, the guy went to the shower. There he discovered the Tree of Evolution. 8 points were available to him. It was less than the guy expected, but that's enough for now. To get more you need to get out and so much more dangerous. Therefore, you need to immediately use the points you received. The guy used 5 points in order to increase the speed level to the 3rd, and also used 2 points in order to increase the detection to the 2nd level. After the guy got out of the shower, he found his sister on the balcony and asked her about why she was not sleeping. The girl replied that she was watching the news and they say that zombies appeared all over the world at once and humanity faced an unprecedented crisis. They also said that the spread is under control, and everything will get better very soon. The girl asked her brother if it was true, because there are a lot of zombies everywhere, and what happened so suddenly that it shouldn't just end like that. In response to this, the guy said that he would definitely come up with something, and it didn't matter because he would protect his sister at any cost. The guy asked Zenu if she believed him. The girl replied that she believed her brother, just worried about him. She also said that today she was terrified that he wouldn't come back. The girl said that if she could only walk, she would help her brother in everything that she would have enough strength for, because she does not want to sit idly by. In response to this, the guy said that the girl should not worry just like that and she would definitely be able to get to her feet. The girl asked the guy about how he imagines it, because she knows that her illness is incurable and she will never be able to get up. The guy thought that, in fact, the girl still has a chance if she awakens her strength. On this day there will be a meteor shower, which was a turning point. In a previous life, he caused the evolution of zombies after the second wave of the apocalypse. It was meteorites that changed the fate of mankind. At that moment, the girl told her brother that you are sparkling in the sky. The meteorite emits a particularly radiative energy that feeds the zombies. When they absorb it, they turn into genetic mutants. However, if a person eats such a core, he can get some abilities. The guy thought that if he could get as many cores and more industrial people as possible, then he could change history. The guy also remembered that there were even those who were able to directly absorb energy and draw strength from there, but such are extremely rare. At that moment, a meteor shower began. The girl told her brother that the meteorite was flying straight into their house. The guy looked through binoculars to see where he fell. The girl said that the meteorite flew very close and if its trajectory had changed even a little, they would have suffered greatly. The guy realized that the meteorite fell not so far away, just 16 kilometers from his house. At the speed of the 3rd level, he can run to there in an hour. The guy had to make some preparations and the next day he decided to go, because he needed to get this meteorite for his sister. Suddenly, the guy found that his drink was frozen, but when he took it out, it was still warm. The girl who was watching all this said that it was all terrible and asked her brother if the end of the world had come. She also added that they need to stay at home, as it is not safe outside. Suddenly it dawned on the guy that his sister was already absorbing the energy of the meteorite. He told his sister that he promised her that she would get back on her feet soon. The next day, the guy told his sister that he wanted to leave the house. It scared her very much. The girl tried in every way to dissuade her brother from this venture, since it was too dangerous on the street. The guy told his sister to calm down, as this is very important, and he must do it for the sake of his sister and all mankind. The guy said that just a little more, and his sister will be able to stand on her feet. The girl told the guy to stop talking about it, and added that she would rather have her brother safe and sound than be able to walk again. She really asked her brother not to leave. Doan apologized and said that he understood that there was a complete mess going on right now and asked his sister to give him some time. He gave the girl a walkie-talkie that he found in the apartment. With her help, the girl will be able to contact her brother. The guy really asked the girl not to let anyone into the apartment, and he promised to tell her about the rest as soon as he returned. The guy thought that if he did it now, the girl would not believe him, but when she awakens her powers, everything will fall into place. And although the guy believed that he needed to be close to his sister for the sake of her safety, he must become stronger and go outside. Suddenly, the girl spoke into the guy's walkie-talkie and asked him how she could be heard. She apologized to the guy for putting pressure on him. Because he does everything for the girl, she only complains. The guy replied that everything was fine and he understood his sister, because he was not the same person as he was 2 days ago. At this time, the guy arrived on the 1st floor. He said he had to go, reminded the girl again about her safety and went outside. The girl asked her brother to check his pockets. The guy put his hand in his pocket and found a cross there. The girl told the guy not to forget about their agreement, because he promised to return before nightfall. The guy thanked his sister for the cross and said that he would come before dark. After the meteor shower, the city turned into ruins. In some miserable 48 hours the world turned into hell. Now there should be fewer zombies, and the energy of the meteor shower distracts them, but caution still does not hurt. The guy decided that he should not attract attention, especially from mutant animals. Suddenly, a zombie got out of the car that the guy was passing by. However, Duin quickly dealt with them. At that moment, in another part of the city, the military was standing. One of them turned to Mr. Lai and asked him how the situation was there. He replied that everyone was dead and that it was possible to report that the Zia team had destroyed zombies in the west. Another soldier reported to the commander that all mutated zombies in the west have been eliminated. Lee asked about what was going on, because after the meteor shower, the number of zombies decreased dramatically. At this time, in some office, a girl approached Miss Zia. She said that Mr. Lai reported that the zombies on the west side have been eliminated and they are awaiting further action. The girl told the military to continue patrolling, because you need to make sure that not a single zombie is missed. After that, the girl said that on top of everything else, Mr. Huang said he wanted to return to the company. After that, the man got up from the table and banged on it with his fist. He asked about how much longer he would be stuck in this place and ordered to take them to the company. In response to this, the girl said that she was a police officer. They were the man's personal bodyguard. She also added that such behavior in these conditions is equivalent to suicide. If a man values his life, then he should listen to her and not get involved, because she is the commander here. The girl also told the man to read the news about the situation. The girl asked the man if he understood her words. He replied that he understood everything. The girl ordered Lin Wen to contact Mr. Lai because she needed to give him information. The second man, who was sitting at the table, glared at the girl and thought that one day he would teach her a lesson. The girl asked Mr. Lee about where all the zombies could have gone. The man said that it was difficult for him to answer this question and he thinks that it's all about yesterday's meteor shower. He asked the captain if he should investigate the matter. In response, the girl said that it would need to be done, but not now. She also said that if what the man says is true, then going there now would be too risky. She ordered the team to return and wait for the order. At this moment, Duin was walking through the city. He found that the zombies were getting bigger and bigger, which meant that the meteorite was already close. The guy realized that, apparently, he could not avoid a collision with zombies, so he would fight with them. The guy quickly finished off several zombies on his way, and got 4 evolution points for it. Suddenly, the guy saw the energy of a meteorite in front of him. It was purple. With the speed of the 3rd level, the guy gets to the place in a couple of seconds, but he doesn't know what to expect there, so he decided to check the neighborhood first, and then go. The guy climbed onto the roof and looked at the meteorite through binoculars. He saw a fragment of a meteorite, which he had never seen live in his previous life. He also saw that there seemed to be a zombie around, how many, but somehow he wasn't interested in it at all. It seemed strange to the guy that the zombie didn't fit the shard and he thought that the zombie might be unusual. The guy decided that he needed to hurry, because if he pulls the cat by the tail, the zombie can absorb all the energy and mutate. And there were a lot of zombies around the guys, and at night it would be a big problem. The guy decided that he needed to act now, just pick up the shard and run away. The guy ran up to the crater, in which there was a fragment from a meteorite. He wanted to cut off the zombie's head with his blade, but it broke on the girl's head. A red tattoo lit up on her arm. This zombie girl's eyeballs were pitch black and her pupils were golden. The guy suggested that it was a native zombie. In a previous life, they were the most terrifying, and the guy could not understand why she was here. The girl flew up to the guy with great speed and knocked him over. Then he fell to the ground, but the vines caught him, and the guy realized that the zombie was really native. Duin took out a weapon from his pocket and cut the vines with it. Such native zombies have special abilities, and the power of speed is quickly pumped. It's like they were born killers. The guy couldn't understand why such a strong zombie appeared so early. The girl attacked the guy with her vines, but Duin decided not to fight her. The guy decided that he would just grab the shard and run away. However, the zombie decided to close the path to the shard with its vines. The guy cut them and decided that she had read his thoughts. He realized that the zombie girl was laughing at him. This prompted the guy to think that she had a mind, which did not bode well for him. The girl attacked Duin again with her vines. The guy thought that yesterday he fought with powerful zombies, and today with a native. This completely contradicts the events of a past life, which means that history is changing. The guy couldn't understand what was going on while he watched the zombie pulling power from the shard. Duin realized that it was from them that the native ones arose and now they are protecting these fragments. If the guy's conjectures are correct, then the girl will not go far from the shard. The guy jumped as high as possible to get out of the pit. The zombie girl sent her vines after him. They cut the thread with a cross on the guy's arm, and he, in turn, cut all the vines that were reaching for him. Doan collapsed to the ground and began to spit up blood. The guy realized that he was right, that in order to pick up the shard, he would have to defeat this zombie girl. After some time, the guy came out of the pit and hid in an abandoned house nearby. He decided that it was too risky to go straight to her, and he needed to prepare a good plan. The guy bandaged all his wounds and reached into his backpack. From there he took out a large jar of the dead man's blood. The zombie girl heard the roar of the engine. Looking in the direction of the sound, she saw Doan, who was riding a motorcycle directly in her direction. Behind him was a huge crowd of zombies. They all ran after the guy, because he was holding a jar of dead man's blood in his hands, and she beckoned them with her smell. The guy threw the jar into the pit in which the zombie girl and the shard were. He decided that since the girl did not want to leave, then let her meet the guests. A bunch of zombies ran straight into the pit to the girl. They all piled on top of her at once in a huge pile. However, the girl, using her strength and vines, pushed them away from her in one movement. The guy watched all this from the roof of a house nearby, and was surprised by such strength, because the girl put everyone down in just one blow. Doan realized that he himself could not defeat this zombie girl, and would have to rely on those low-level zombies that he sent to her, and then only reap the delicious fruits of victory. A huge pile of zombies surrounded the nugget girl from all sides, and she fought them off with her vines. As a result, when there was absolutely nothing to do, she rose above the pit and enveloped all the zombies who were below with her vines, creating a kind of cocoon. Doan decided to get closer to the girl in order to see what else she can do. A lot of zombies ran into the noise of the battle, but it wasn't enough. The guy decided that he needed to find stronger monsters. The native had already managed to kill those around her, and even though she was exhausted, there was no doubt that she was still too tough for Doan. The guy decided that if he delayed, the shard would restore energy and then it would become even more difficult. Doan couldn't figure out what to do in such a situation. Suddenly, a huge dog mutated into a zombie appeared on the battlefield of the girl zombie nugget. He started attacking the girl by jumping on her. She, in turn, put the vines in front of her, which were supposed to cut through the beast, but he gnawed them without difficulty and got to the girl herself. The guy was surprised that a zombified animal appeared. It turned out to be very powerful and he had every chance to defeat the nugget girl. However, after looking at the fur of this beast, the guy realized that he was about to mutate. Doan realized that if the beast swallowed the shard, something would happen. The girl used her vines to drive the beast away from her and she did it. The animal was distracted, and she drove it into the wall with her vines. However, the dog stood up as if nothing had happened and was ready for a new fight. The beast very cleverly evaded the attacks of the girl, which she did exclusively with the help of her vines. In the end, he jumped on the girl and began to eat her. The guy realized that if the dog eats a nugget, the situation will be very bad. For a second, it seemed to the guy that the beast really killed the original, but then, looking closer, he saw her breathing and realized that she was still alive. When the dog was completely distracted, she plunged her vines into him again and lifted him to the top. Doan realized that the zombie girl had cheated and tried to lure both the dog and the guy to the bottom in order to kill with one blow, because she no longer has the strength for both of them. The girl realized that the guy guessed about her trap and mockingly asked him if he had become wiser. Doan replied that he could say the same about her. Then the girl asked the guy if he was sure he could beat her. In response to this, the guy said that this was his question. The guy took off his shirt and stayed in one t-shirt. The girl said that she did not think that the guy himself would come to his certain death. In response to this, Doan said that there was something in this crater that he needed, so he had to return. At that moment, a vine headed towards the guy, but he managed to notice her vines and cut them off. Doan noticed that the primordial girl had become slower. The girl pointed dozens of vines at the guy and shouted for him to die, calling him a bug. The guy noticed that thanks to improved detection, he could monitor her speed. Doan easily cut all the vines that were aimed at him. The girl angrily shouted that the guy was too self-confident and came closer to him. At that moment, the girl's hand was torn off by one of the vines. She angrily shouted at Doan that he was a human brat and she would cut him into small pieces, kill him and not leave a living place. At that moment, she directed several dozen vines at herself and they entangled her. The guy couldn't understand what was going on, because he thought that the zombie girl was fighting in full force. The guy realized that the native absorbs the energy of the meteorite. After that, the girl turned into a huge monster like a big flower and began to hit Doan. The guy deviated from her attacks and realized that he needed to escape from this place as soon as possible. However, the girl blocked his exit from the pit and said that she would not take him for a ride a second time. She began to direct several dozen vines at the guy again and again, and Doan, in turn, cut them all off, but already understood that things were bad for him. The guy couldn't figure out what to do, because he had to come up with something urgently. At one point, the vine was already very close to Doan and almost pierced into his eye, when suddenly it dissolved and the zombie primordial fell to the ground groaning. The guy couldn't figure out what was going on. Suddenly, he realized that the zombie girl could not withstand such a strong energy, so her body was also exhausted after the fight. The girl struggled with the last of her strength, directing vines at the guy, but he easily chopped them all. Zombie Primordial shouted that she would kill the guy, and in response to this he said that she would rather kill herself. The guy cut off the vines and came closer and closer to the zombies. As a result, he cut off her roots, and the zombie girl fell. She asked the guy about why a person needs the energy of a meteorite. The guy replied that it was none of her business. Everyone has what they want. Only Doan at one time, because of the strength of the enemy, made the wrong choice, and regretted it for a very long time. So the guy swore to the last to stand for everything important to him and scrolled through these thoughts in his head for 20 years. So he understands the original zombie, the one who will fight to the death for his treasure until all the enemies take a break. Or she herself. After these words, Doan killed a zombie and got 100 evolution points for it. The guy said that he did not think that she would bring him so many points, and if each such fragment has its own defender, then you need to be alert. The guy calmly touched the shard with his hands and decided that then Zenu would be able to get to his feet soon. Touching the shard, the guy realized that his wounds had almost all disappeared and healed. If this is the power of a meteorite fragment, then that's fine, because with it, Doan's sister will definitely recover. The guy put the shard in his pocket and decided that he would go to share the good news with his sister. Suddenly, the guy heard a sound behind him. He turned around and saw a dead monster, the same big zombified dog that had attacked the primordial zombie earlier. The guy thought he heard something and the monster seems to be still alive. Suddenly, some red energy began to be released from the monster. Doan couldn't understand how this was possible, because he gave birth to a little puppy. The guy thought that zombies cannot reproduce at the initial stage, and after the mother's conversion, the cub in the womb had to become the energy that would absorb the body. So the monster died before it was swallowed up. It turns out that the puppy survived and inherited all the powers of the mother. It was very rare and he was lucky. The guy thought that he would be able to tame a newborn monster if he became the first one he saw when he opened his eyes. The kid will consider him a family to which he will be faithful. The dog opened his eyes and saw Doan. He looked at him for a while, and then began to lick his face. The guy realized that it worked and he tamed the monster. Doan happily said that today was his day and told the dog that they should try in the future. He decided to name the dog Goldie. Since the dog was a newborn and still weak, he needed to gain strength and sleep. Doan decided that the dog would sleep in his backpack. It was getting dark and it was time for Doan to go home, because it would be harder to get home at night. There are 5 days left until the end of the Apocalypse Revelation stage. The guy was running through the city towards the house. The sun had already set, and the zombie energy was thickening. In a day, they could mutate and absorb the shard. The guy chose a remote path, but they found him anyway. They were monsters, big mutated rats, a whole pack that was much more difficult to deal with. The guy realized that they had come to his soul for the energy of the meteorite. Doan realized that his position was not advantageous and he could not fight them, so he needed to hide in a safe place. At that moment, in the police captain's office, the girl told Sister Zia that it was worth having a little rest, because she needed sleep. In response to this, the girl said that she was fine and it was better to let old Lee and the others rest. Suddenly the girl saw someone running down the street. She realized it was a survivor. The girl ordered everyone to get ready for a sortie, as there was a living person nearby. However, she saw a pack of rats running after him and told him not to tell the others yet. The girl was surprised at how fast the guy ran. Doan was able to avoid the attacks of 5 zombies at the same time. The girl wondered where this guy came from. The girl ordered Lin Wenwen to tell Old Lai to wait for her instructions. At that moment, Doan saw the factory and decided that it was possible to wait out the attack of rats in it. The guy managed to jump over the fence at the last moment and hide behind it. After walking a little through the territory of the plant, he realized that it was also not safe here, because the fence would not hold them for a long time, and if they were following a plume from a meteorite fragment, it would be useless to hide. The guy sat down to rest. He thought that he would not be able to get home today and he had to wait for the sun to rise. The guy opened the backpack and realized that there was no shard in it. At first, he assumed that the shard fell out while he was running, but this is impossible because the monsters are still chasing him. which means that the energy of the meteorite is still with him. The guy assumed that the dog had swallowed the shard. Suddenly, a message appeared that the decay of the gene energy is complete and absorption begins. The guy was surprised. He couldn't understand what was happening. It was as if he was being torn to pieces. After that, there was a big explosion due to the fact that the guy absorbed a lot of energy. Because of this explosion, a hole was formed in the wall through which the rats could enter inside. The guy was lying on the ground and could not gather his strength in any way. He couldn't figure out what was happening to him, but he assumed it was still because of the action of the tree of evolution. At that moment, the rats came very close to him. They began to run at the guy, but he lost consciousness and could not even defend himself or run away from them in any way. At that moment, Goldie appeared. He fought with rats and tried to protect his master, but eventually flew somewhere far beyond the factory. At that moment, Captain Zia and 2 policemen with guns appeared. The girl shouted to Kin that he was saving the guy, and she and Mr. Lai would cover him. Kin took Doon's body on his shoulder and tried to carry it to the door. Mr. Lai asked the girl if she was sure that it was worth bringing a stranger to the shelter. He said that he looked as if he had been bitten, and if this was true, then it would not be sweet for them. The girl said that they could not abandon the survivor and needed to isolate him and observe. The girl told Mr. Oi that she and Kin would take care of the zombies, and he should tell Lin when to get ready to go to another place, since it was already unsafe here. Lee went to carry out the order. At this time, Goldie was fighting with the remaining rats and zombies on the street. While the guy was unconscious, he was bestowed with some special energy of the Tree of Evolution. 4 days have passed. There is 1 day left until the end of the revelation stage. The guy woke up in some room. At this time, Goldie, already grown up, was waiting for him on the street. The guy stood up. His head hurt very much, and he couldn't figure out where he was. He opened his eyes and saw in front of him a girl who pointed a gun at him. She told him not to move and to answer the questions first. She asked the guy about how he fought zombies on equal terms. The guy sat down and said he didn't have an answer. The girl said she wouldn't let him go. The guy grabbed the gun from the girl's hands and pressed it to the table. He asked her if she thought she could stop him. The girl realized that the guy was strong. At that moment, Mr. Lai and Kin burst into the office with weapons. They ordered the guy to move away from the police captain. The guy saw the military. In response to this, the girl said that she forgot to introduce herself. They are the main team of the military police, and the girl is their leader, Zia Ki. They participated in saving the guy from rats. At that moment, one of the directors of the corporation said that the guy was ungrateful, only opened his eyes and immediately attacked. He also said that it was not worth sitting with him for 4 days because they saved it is not clear who. Doon suddenly realized that he had been unconscious for 4 days. He remembered that he had blacked out when he was attacked by mutants and realized that Zenu must have been exhausted from excitement. The guy ran to the exit, but the girl stopped him. She said the street was full of zombies and it was too dangerous. She has seen what Doon is capable of and hopes that he will be able to join them. Now every fighter is worth his weight in gold. The guy asked what would happen if he refused. At that moment, the glass was smashed by some big monster of a face that was not visible. He almost hurt the girl with his paw, when suddenly Doon stopped him. He told the girl to move away, and she obeyed. The guy couldn't figure out when he had time to react, because his agility wasn't that good. He also realized that his strength had suddenly increased. Everyone standing in the room watched this and could not understand how this was possible and whether he was a man at all. The guy pushed the animal away and jumped out of the office into the street. He realized that his physical performance had improved. He realized that he didn't have time to think and needed to deal with the zombies. The guy was already preparing to strike the beast in the face, but stopped. He realized that Goldie was in front of him. He began to lick his master, and he, in turn, was very surprised at how his dog had grown up. He apologized to the dog and said he didn't recognize him. The guy realized that he had restrained Goldie with his bare hands, and this meant that the level of his characteristics had increased. He decided to check it out. The guy was horrified to discover that his indicators for the murder of the original disappeared. He also couldn't understand what the improvement of genes was, because it cost a whole 1,000 evolution points. The guy did not understand when the first launch was, since he was offered a repeat one. He entered the system of the Tree of Evolution. Doon noticed that something had changed in this place. He asked the tree if it was because of him that the guy's glasses and a meteorite fragment disappeared. He realized that the work of the tree. The guy reached the limit and became stronger, but remained at the same levels. Every person has a genetic limit. No matter how much you pump, you can't exceed it. Doon has already seen how in a previous life an S-level fighter tried to overcome this threshold, constantly walking on the edge of a knife. In the end, he died, and the obstacle itself, which prevents people from evolving further, was called gene restriction. The fact that Duin will be able to bypass him means his endless evolution. Although you need to accumulate a whole 1,000 points for this, but the game is worth the candle. The team could not understand why Duin dragged the dog to them. The guy replied that they should relax, because this is his doggy. Until recently, he was just a baby. But after eating so many zombies, he grew to such a size. The kid thought that the team wanted to hurt Duin, so he attacked. Zia said she didn't understand something and asked the guy if his pet was a monster. Duin replied that it was a long story, but in general, it is. He said that he would tell them all the full story later, but now they need to deal with the problem, because all this noise attracted a bunch of zombies. Mr. Lai looked at the huge number of zombies and said that with such forces they could not stand against them. When asked Ms. Zia what they should do, Duin told everyone that it was no longer possible to stay in this place and needed to find another shelter. Zia replied that they had nowhere to go and they even found this place only after a week of searching. Duin, warming up, replied that Captain Zia should not worry because there is a military shelter 40 kilometers from this place, and they will go there. The girl was surprised that there was a shelter somewhere and asked the guy if he was lying. She also said that there are a lot of zombies outside and they can't get through. Duin said he would take care of it, and everyone else should hide in the warehouse and wait for him there. Zia said it was too dangerous for the guy to go alone and she would cover for him. Duin said that Zia did not need to do this and she would not help him, but only hinder him. He also added that his support is needed more than others. After that, Duin Na Goldie ran towards the zombies. When asked Miss Zia if it was risky for him to go alone and if the guy would definitely come back, Zia replied that she knew for sure that he was stronger than all of them and she had to believe in him. Zia realized that she didn't even know his name and should ask him as soon as he returned. Duin got off Goldie and looked at the zombie. He realized that even though he had become stronger many times, it would be stupid to go alone against such a crowd of zombies empty. Suddenly he saw a road sign next to him and realized that this metal is very durable, and this is exactly what he needs. He took the sign and went into battle. Zia watched Duin act and decided that he was crazy because he was like a zombie bait. However, the girl decided to act according to plan and ordered everyone to take their things and move out immediately. Duin ordered Goldie to stand aside for now because he needs to test his new abilities and he wants to pile up the zombies himself. The dog was upset, but listened to the owner. Duin realized that the previous one would never have been able to cope with so many zombies, but the current one is different from the past. The guy ran into a crowd of zombies and told them to attack him and let him feel their power. The guy, holding a road sign in his hands, ran towards the crowd of zombies. He began to throw them all away and realized that he had become noticeably stronger. At that moment, an awakened zombie went to the guy. The awakened one has the lowest initial level of F rank, but the difference between him and an ordinary zombie is enormous. Well, at least their intelligence is primitive and he only does what he wants to devour all living things. Duin hit the zombie with a road sign, but it bent over. Duin realized that the zombie's strength was in his impenetrable armor. Duin said it was great and he would be his punching bag. At that moment, the team led by Zia hid in the warehouse. Wen said that he still hasn't returned and that Lai Duin is definitely fine. Zia replied that all they could do was believe that he would come back and join them. One of the plant's directors asked what would happen if he didn't come. Will they continue to wait for him? In response, Captain Zia said that they needed to stick to the plan. But the man replied that it was enough to say this because they saw a crowd of zombies rushing at him and it was almost impossible to survive in such a situation. If they just sit here, they will die. Zia told him to calm down. In response to this, the man started shouting again and said that if they had not saved him, they would not have been in this situation. Since Duin decided to become a bait for zombies, he should rather get out of this place and hide in a shelter. He also added that if it gets dark, they won't be able to leave. Zia said that the man was an idiot and ordered Old Lai to shut him up, because he creates a lot of problems. In response, Mr. Lai turned to Captain Zia and said that he also believes that it is necessary to leave, because they do not know whether the survivor is alive or not, so we need to move out. He also added that the guy will be able to find shelter without them and he can do it. Zia sighed and agreed. She said she would go and check on the guy and if she didn't come back in half an hour, then Old Lee would lead the squad and lead everyone to the shelter. Mr. Lai said it was too dangerous for Captain Zia to go alone. Zia replied that Old Lai was right and she shouldn't keep everyone in this place like in a cage, but she couldn't leaving this kid. At that moment, a large zombie appeared on the backs of Zia and Wen. Old Lee warned the girls about this and told them to duck. However, at that moment, Duin appeared and hit the zombie. Duin said there was a problem on the way back and apologized for making everyone wait for him. The girl replied that they should apologize because the police sent a civilian into the inferno. Doon replied that everything was fine and if it wasn't for them, he would have been a corpse long ago. He also added that he had cleaned up most of the zombies in the neighborhood and the team could move to the shelter. He also said that he would send Goldie with them and he should take care of them, and the road should be clean. Zia was surprised to ask the guy if he would go with them. Doon replied that he needed to find his little sister. There are 7 hours left until the end of the revelation stage. The guy got off Goldie while everyone else stayed on the dog. Zia handed the backpack to the guy and asked if they would see each other again. He replied that he thought they would see each other. Doon planned to return for his sister and go with her to the shelter. Suddenly, Zia remembered that she hadn't asked the guy's name. He introduced himself as Doon Fei. Captain Zia said she had a lot of questions to ask the guy. She also wished him to be careful and be sure to come back. The guy nodded and ordered Goldie to go ahead and get them all to the place before midnight. At midnight, the revelation stage will end and many awakened zombies will appear. Although Goldie is also an initial level of F rank, but he has not yet awakened. Doon was afraid that his dog might get hurt if he met his own kind. After that, the guy went to his sister. When he ran to the house, he found traces of a shootout and was shocked. He assumed it was the military. The guy shouted into his sister's radio and asked her if she could hear him. The guy ran to his apartment with anger and fear. He thought that the military should have been engaged in the construction of shelters, not shooting zombies. Doon decided that it might have been criminals who decided to take advantage of what was happening. If that was the case, then Doon's sister was in danger. When he entered the house, he realized that the electricity had already been turned off in the area, and the elevator was not working. He had to climb the stairs. There were traces of a battle on every floor and it was definitely done by local hooligans. When the world is in chaos, such people can be more dangerous than zombies. The guy ran to his floor and hoped that his sister was all right. When he arrived, he saw that the door to the apartment was broken and his sister was not in the room. He saw only an empty overturned wheelchair and a broken frame with a photo of Doon and his sister at sea. Doon got angry and swore that he would cut everyone into pieces and definitely save his sister. At that moment, in another part of the city, 2 men with guns were driving a car and shooting at zombies. They couldn't understand why there were so many zombies in this place and where they came from. Suddenly, the car got stuck because of the corpses of zombies. One of the men said that if this continues, they will all burn here. He asked his boss what they should do. The boss called the guys idiots and told them to stop shaking. He told them to calm down and said that he had already informed his uncle about everything. He will send help to them, and while they are not there, he ordered the guys to take care of this baby. Zenu was sitting in the guy's car with her hands and feet tied. The girl shouted to the man to stop touching her and let go. She asked him why they were doing all this, because people had to unite and fight together against zombies. In response, the man said that he had no desire to die for others and the more you think about yourself, the better. He also added that now is the time to use what is happening to expand power. He also said that his plans include arranging a utopia that will belong only to him. At that moment, something big and heavy fell on the car. The man decided that this was a backup sent by his uncle and asked himself why he was alone. The girl immediately realized that it was her brother. He threw one of the guys out of the car into the crowd of zombies with one movement of his hand. Another guy pointed a gun at him and asked about who he was in general. Doon kicked this guy out of the car into a crowd of zombies. After that, Doon told his sister that everything was fine. At that moment, the man who was sitting next to the girl and was the boss took a knife and pointed it at Zenu. He told Doon not to come any closer, otherwise he would kill the girl. The guy threw the knife out of the man's hands and grabbed his clothes, then pulled him to himself. The man started shouting about whether Doon knew who he was and told him to take his hands off him. Doon replied that he was Guan Jialong, a local bandit who was using his uncle Guan Zhonghua's martial law to do whatever he wanted. The man asked the guy about who he was and how he knew him. In response to this, Doon replied that he did not need to know. Doon held the man above the crowd of zombies. He began to shout that Doon would not let him go because he did not want to die. He asked Doon to let him go because he hadn't done anything wrong. He also shouted that if Doon killed him, then Uncle wouldn't just leave Doon alone. Suddenly, helicopters appeared above the car. The man started laughing and saying that it was the death of the guy. Doon smiled and released the man into the crowd of zombies. The man in the helicopter watched it through binoculars and said that it was too late to save the man and they did not have time. He ordered to quickly connect him with Commander Guan. He said on the phone that they arrived late and Guan Jialong died. In response, he asked about what happened and whether the zombies killed him. He replied that they were zombies, but these problems were caused by a boy whom they found on the spot. He asked about the orders. The uncle replied that it was necessary to kill everyone. The man in the helicopter ordered action and said that the target were two people who looked like zombies. The girl noticed that people from helicopters were shooting at them. The guy, holding the girl in his arms, was running away from bullets. In the end, he hid in some apartment. He put the girl on a chair and told her to stay where she was, and he would distract them, because their target was not the girl, but him. The girl asked her brother to promise to return to her. Doon replied that his sister should not be afraid, because he would return quickly. The guy came out of the apartment and saw several helicopters. There are 30 minutes left until the end of the revelation. People were still shooting at Doon, and he in turn dodged bullets. The guy realized that their noise attracted all the zombies in the neighborhood. The guy tore down the door and defended himself with it from bullets. He beat off a bunch of zombies with the same door, which surprised the man in the helicopter. He wondered what kind of guy. He ordered to find a tall building and land him there, and then continue the attack. They started shooting at Doon with a machine gun. It is very difficult to conduct controlled fire from it, and they could hurt the survivors. The guy decided that he urgently needed to escape from this place, because they were too close to Zenu. The helicopter driver said that the guy escaped the attack with a machine gun. They decided to see what Doon was capable of. The man started shooting at the guy from a sniper. The bullet hit Doon's shoulder. After that, the guy disappeared into the building. The man grazed Doon's shoulder, and now the blood attracted zombies. By tracking their movements, they could track him. However, the guy thought that he could get past, or the man dodged. At this moment, Doon was sitting in the room and trying to stop the blood in his wound. If the bullet had flown another millimeter to the left, then he would have died right there. He realized that in this place he would not be able to wait out, as he attracted zombies with his blood. At that moment, the rocket flew into the building where Doon was hiding. The building exploded, and the man reported to his uncle that the target was destroyed. Suddenly he saw movement. It was Goldie. He came running just in time and saved the guy. However, Doon did not know what to do, because he would not be able to get to the helicopter. At that moment, Goldie had wings. The man could not understand where this monster, which can also fly, came from. The people in the helicopter realized that they were finished and they would not be able to cope with the monster. One of the helicopters has already started to fall because Goldie damaged it. Suddenly Goldie and Doon disappeared from the sight of the military. At that moment, the guy entered the helicopter. The man called the commander and said that they had found a survivor. After that, Goldie stopped near the house where the girl was hiding. Doon said he would introduce him to his sister now and asked not to scare her. At that moment, the man with the sniper rifle appeared right in front of Doon. He was pointing his weapon directly at his sister. There are 10 minutes left until the end of the revelation. Foreigners invaded Longcheng. Giant airships dominated the sky. Steel machines oppressed the earth, and high-ranking ascended ones used blades, fists, and even teeth, fighting for territory and survival. But it was not possible to stand. The monsters invaded the earth in a rapid flood. The city of Longcheng has fallen. The picture was creepy. Monsters were everywhere. Destroyed buildings, houses. Innocent people were killed. Our main character Meng Kao, who died in this brutal battle, was able to be reborn again to protect his home. And he was born with his new spark and mission. He swore to the death to protect this land. And for this, he will fight demons to the last. Monsters were everywhere. They didn't spare people by killing them one by one. They destroyed everything around, destroying skyscrapers at every step, creating complete chaos in the city. Our main character Meng Kao tried his best to fight them, but the strength and numbers were unequal. Because of this, he lost. One of the monsters reached out and grabbed him so hard that he screamed and then hit the ground hard. Barely restraining himself on his feet, he stubbornly stood his ground. He wanted to fight these monsters. Immediately, another monster stuck its tentacles into him, dealing him a fatal blow. When he was dying, he remembered his parents and said that he tried his best, but he did not accept such a fate. Meteors flew from the sky to the ground, destroying everything around, and the city burned to the ground. We are moved to another place in the school classroom where the teacher is trying to explain the topic to the students. An old teacher holding a sword and a skeleton of an animal's head shouted to his students to look at his hands to find out what monsters look like. Suddenly, the student who was sleeping in the very last desk woke up abruptly and wondered what was going on here. The girl sitting at the desk looked at him and asked with a disapproving look, was he asleep all the time? The guy, our main character Meng Kao, looked at his hands and realized that he was not dead. Looking to the side, he saw on the blackboard that the final exam would take place in 50 days. He realized that he died and was reborn during the exams, and then noted with annoyance that he would have to pass the exams again. The teacher, glaring angrily with his eyes, said if he sleeps during the lesson, Then at least let him not interfere with his classmates. And then Menkeo said with horror, did he die? Everyone in the class fell silent, looking at him as if he was the last idiot. A guy with a thick build and pink hair, looking at him in amazement, gave him a thumbs up. He was thinking how truthfully it turned out that Menkeo was the most beaten in class 6. The teacher viciously told him to explain himself. Menkeo, startled by this murderous look, immediately began to explain himself to the teacher. He said he allegedly had a nightmare where creatures from another world broke into Longcheng, and everything was destroyed in one moment. And teacher Yan himself also died heroically. Then the teacher's eyes flashed fiercely and he asked, so in his dream the city of Longcheng fell and he himself died. The skeleton of the monster's head immediately cracked under the pressure of the teacher's hand. Remembering how he died, Menkeo cautiously said that he died quickly and painlessly. The teacher smashed the skeleton to pieces, angrily said how Longcheng could fall. It's ridiculous. The teacher angrily shouted for him to go to the wall and stand bent over so that his head was raised and his chest forward. Menkeo, looking at the teacher, asked if he had to stand like that, but when he saw the evil look of the teacher, he immediately fell silent. The teacher, passing the desks of the students, asked Menkeo 50 years ago when the city of Longcheng passed into another world and an epidemic and zombies raged there, did Longcheng fall then? After the zombie disaster, fog descended and zombies invaded the city. They lost a third of the entire population. Countless martyrs bowed their heads before the monsters and asked for their blood. They recaptured every territory, inch by inch, from the teeth of the monsters. Leaning towards him, the teacher shouted whether Longcheng had fallen then, whether they had surrendered at that moment. Menkeo quickly straightened up and replied that the city had not fallen and they had not surrendered either. Turning to the rest of the students, the teacher began to tell them that as soon as the fog cleared, their military quickly and decisively shed the radiance of earthly civilization on the whole other world. How could a city like Longcheng be overpowered by some insignificant foreign creatures that were ferocious? And looking at Menkeo viciously said that it was they, the Earthlings, who were the most ferocious. To which all the students began to approve of his words, saying that sooner or later they would destroy the other world. One of the students stood up and praised the teacher's words. He was neatly dressed and wore glasses. He started saying that they should all train hard, try to become outstanding people and contribute to the development of Longcheng. You can't just sit and be afraid all day thinking about the destruction of Longcheng. Looking sideways at Menkeo, he sarcastically said that unlike some cowardly people, most classmates have the same opinion. And they all said in unison that Longcheng would win. All the girls admired the headman, saying how good he was, and at the same time treated Menkeo with contempt, saying what a loser he was living in the slums, that he's the worst in the class. Menkeo did not understand why the headman was so picky. But then he remembered that they were enemies, and in a previous life he missed the final exam because he inflicted internal damage on Menkeo. And besides, when Longcheng clashed with the other world, the headman betrayed Longcheng and moved towards foreigners. Menkeo looked at him and abruptly took a step. The headman looked at him and inside wondered what was wrong with his gaze. He looked strange. Tall grinned and began praising the headman for how his speech touched his heart, that he already wanted to study more. And he said that thanks to teacher Jan and the headman, he realized his mistake. And from that moment on, he will stand firm and persevere to improve Longcheng City in front of foreigners. The teacher barked that he had finally come to his senses and he should study with Zuo Heijang. And I ordered him to demonstrate the blow of the lying dragon and so stand until the end of the lesson. That chubby guy looked at him uncomprehendingly why Menkeo is not serious about punishments, since this is a very difficult technique and it will be very difficult to hold out even until half of the lesson. Menkeo scratched his head and said that the blow of the hidden dragon was not so difficult for him, but he did not use this blow in his nightmare. Hearing this, his classmates mocked him, telling him not to show off, it's better to ask for mercy. One of them said that teacher Yang was cruel in punishments, but now it seems to him that this punishment is not enough. The headman grinned and said that he had run into it himself. Menkeo, standing in the right position, immediately showed them his hidden dragon strike. Everyone was shocked because his blow turned out to be powerful, and even stronger than that of the headman. They didn't understand how he did it. Menkeo pathetically started babbling that he hadn't trained for a while, and his movements might not be perfect, and he promised that he would try harder in the future and asked for forgiveness. The teacher turned around and said that the lesson was continuing. Everyone said that after his dream, Menkeo began to show off more and his strength increased. The headman was furious and promised himself that he would make him regret that he had put him in an awkward position. Then Menkeo's eyes lit up yellow and digital codes began to appear before his eyes, and a sign appeared where it was written that the spark completes the binding and confirmation of the owner's identity. The bearer of fire Mangkeo. Mangkeo recalled his past life. When he was dying and Longcheng was collapsing, a large fireball came out from the center of the city and directly crashed into his body. Mangkeo thought it was his nightmare, but it turned out it wasn't. While he was standing in the pose of a lying dragon, signs appeared in front of him where it is written that he is now the bearer of the fire of civilization. And the initial reward is 10,000 contribution points. Mangkeo has been found to have old hidden injuries and does not possess any basic knowledge. Does he want to distribute his initial contribution reward to improve to an optimal state? After he agreed, his injuries and wounds began to heal and are being treated. Many doctors have been helpless in treating hidden injuries sustained due to a mistake during the improvement last year. Mangkeo felt that his torn muscles and tendons were fusing together. 3,500 contribution points were used to study the basic power technique primitive bull method to the expert level. Mangkeo was delighted that the memory of the primitive bull method technique from his previous life had returned. And then the signs disappeared. Mangkeo turned to sincerely to continue the process and said that he could spend as many contribution points as he wanted. But then he realized that it was all worth 10,000 points. Then he suggested that if Iskra helped raise the primitive bull method to the level of a master, then he would give him an Ayu. He refused, and the tablet said that the fire of civilization grows with the carrier. The stronger the civilization, the stronger the fire carrier. And Mangkeo should contribute to the development of his civilization as soon as possible and also unlock new powers and missions. Mangkeo wondered why he was not told how to get these glasses. Mangkeo could stand until the end of the lesson. The teacher looked at him and putting away his things said that the lesson was over. All classmates are shocked that he could stand until the end of the lesson, and one of them said that standing on one leg is very useful for hardening Jing Kai and Shen. The term from Taoism Jing is the corporeal essence of Kai the life force, Shen the spirit. Mangkeo began to feel weak. He really wanted to eat and wondered if he himself would have to replenish the energy that Iskra spent on treatment and learning skills. Then the chubby guy ran up to him and rushed at him. He was his best friend and his name was Chu Faison. He asked how Mangkeo managed to practice the lying dragon stance. Mangkeo called him by putting his hand on his shoulder and asked him to take the buffet to eat. And tomorrow and the day after tomorrow he will treat him. In his defense, he said that he had forgotten the money. Faison threw his hand off his shoulder and said that when he became so generous, he wasn't like that. To which Mangkeo replied how can he deceive him because they are like brothers. Chu Faison was delighted to hear these words and they went to the buffet. Mangkeo ate so much that there was a mountain of packing noodles left of him. After he ate the ramen, he started with chocolate. From this sight, his friend was so furious that he wanted to hit him, since Mangkeo had spent his 2-week budget. Then Mangkeo's eyes lit up and he could react faster and hit Chu in the face. He flew a few meters away and began to cry, saying that some kind of demon ran to class. Walking along the sidewalk, Mangkeo saw bottles and cans. A cleaner worked not far from him, saying that again the students scattered their garbage everywhere. Saying that he would help him, Mangkeo began to collect the bottle in a dumpster. And for the fact that he helped a person, the development of the spirit of justice of the city of Longcheng, he received 0.001 contribution points. For taking care of the environment, I received the same amount of contribution points. To which Mangkeo thought that it turns out to be easier than he thought. When he entered the building, Chu Faison told him to hurry up so as not to be late for class. Then 2 girls passed by Mangkeo going up the stairs. Involuntarily, Mangkeo stared at them and got a click from Chu for it. He indignantly said you can't stare at people like that. To which Mangkeo melancholically replied that he had only just realized this ordinary life. She is worth doing everything to protect her. Chu looked after them and replied that he admired Mangkeo, saying that he was both so shameless and so refined. And then Chu came to his senses and told him to stop staring and tell him better if he really arranged the death of Teacher Yang and the fall of Longcheng. And then he smiled dreamily and asked if he had become a general in his dream. To which Mangkeo was indignant, saying he only saw fragments and did not arrange a massacre. When he wanted to say something about Chu himself, he stumbled and he remembered that he was just a soldier on the front line. And it began to be unrealistic to tell that the monster war quickly moved to a higher level and a lot of fierce monsters appeared. And he annoyingly noted that they didn't even have time to leave the initial location when the end of Longcheng was already predetermined. The initial location is like in MMORPG games where beginners start from. Then Mangkeo remembered about his parents, but looking at his friend, he asked if he remembered that once Mangkeo dreamed of entering the university and becoming an extraordinary person, and he himself wanted to go to a military school and become a general. He put his arm around his shoulders and said that they had talked about it yesterday as it was once. Menkeo also hugged him and said that their dreams would definitely come true. Chu said if Menkeo wants to go to university, they should prepare well in these 50 days and he will help him with this. To which Menkeo thought or else he would help him, since he experienced a lot of things in his past life, and yet they believed that they would go where they wanted. All the students started to gather in the classroom and their lesson was Chinese and literature. Some girls started discussing that they would really like to learn the Song of Mula and the Lotus Pond under the lights of the moon, and they were impatient to learn faster and said that they really missed Teacher Huang, Chinese teacher. It was not Teacher Huang who entered the classroom, but the headman, informing them that the teacher was ill and ordered everyone to line up and follow him to the training hall. To which all the students were indignant, but still went to the training hall. While they were all going to the training hall, Chu talked to Menkeo about how children of their own age used to have 20 literature lessons a week and added that those times were very cool. To which Meng replied that he could hide the book and read for his own pleasure when he was free from training. The headman turned to them and seeing them chatting, shouted to them to go faster. Chu Faison was infuriated by this and said that he didn't like that this guy was pretending to be the most important here. And he lowered his voice and asked Meng if he knew why this guy didn't go to the rocket class and decided to stay as a prefect in their regular class. And he replied that he stayed because the school gives the elders resources for improvement. His family has its own company, so he also takes away resources from such poor bastards like them. Menkeo thoughtfully agreed and said if the headman, Zuo Heizhe, had not used his uncle's connections to stay in a regular classroom, then the headman would have been Faison himself. The headman looked at them angrily and immediately shouted for them to stop talking and go faster, at which Chu got very angry and wanted to throw his fists, but Menkeo stopped him, saying first they need to practice. They entered the training hall where everything was beautifully equipped. There were almost all the necessary things for training. The headman said that this is an independent lesson and everyone chooses the area of improvement and trains himself. Menkeo chose a boxing simulator and threw a punch, but his punch wasn't powerful because he was still hungry. To heal the hidden injuries, the spark swallowed all the energy. The spark helped him restore his body and awaken his skills, but it can't give him strength. Menkeo felt like a tank without fuel, and to fill the tank would require a lot of resources to improve. From the other end of the training hall, his classmates were watching him. One of them said that it was a pity that Menkeo wanted to become extraordinary before. The headman, lifting the barbells, looked at Menkeo and told him if he was not training, then let him leave here, and I freed up the inventory for the guys who are training hard. To which Chu said that he had not trained for a long time and he needed recovery and taking him with him, and they went to another training ground. While Menkeo was sitting, Chu was training on a boxing bag and told Menkeo that he had not improved for a whole year and probably even forgot such a basic technique as bull power. Following his training, Menkeo looked at his friend funny. The same indignant, he said that he thinks that he trains poorly, because Menkeo said with a wise look that power is not done that way. Chu pouted and said they are brothers, and Menkeo is trying to show off in front of him. Menkeo with tired eyes told him not to be offended, but those methods for using forces they are not very. To which Chu was even more offended by telling Menkeo how shameless he was. Then Menkeo suggested that he go to the toilet. They went to the toilet and after making sure that no one was there, Menkeo closed the door. When Chu asked what he was going to do, Menkeo smiled slyly and told him to take off his clothes and let him study his muscles. Chu was horrified and asked what he was going to do and said that he would resist, he would not win. Menkeo looked at him wearily and asked if he had just used the bull power technique. Did he have a feeling that the power was about to leak out? Chu looked at him dumbfounded, and squatting down, he looked at his knees and asked when he steps on the floor whether he feels tingling from his feet to his knees. Chu asked in surprise how he knew, to which Menkeo said that he did not have the innermost meaning of the power of the bull, and half of his strength simply got drunk into the body. And he added a little gloatingly, if he continues at this pace, he can easily earn himself osteoporosis. Chu here hugged his legs and crying told him to save him. Menkeo told him to use his power and he would watch. And immediately his eyes lit up with a golden spark. After some time they came out of the toilet. Chu's eyes shone with happiness and he told Menkeo that thanks to his manipulation, he had increased his strike force to 3%. To which Menkeo smiled and said to take the test and find out how much his strength had increased. Then a spark sign appeared in front of Menkeo's eyes and it was written there, for instructing a simple citizen Chu Faison about the basic skill bull power, training progress of 10%. And for the fact that Menkeo helped ordinary citizens to become stronger and increase the level of combat effectiveness of the city of Longcheng. he received plus 10 contribution points. Menkeo was surprised to note that if he teaches ordinary citizens the skills that I gave him from Iskra, then he gets contribution points for it. And I thought that if he teaches all ordinary citizens combat skills in the future, he can make them 100 times stronger than in his nightmare. And when the time comes, they will show these foreigners who is strong here. And I realized the meaning of the word the stronger the civilization, the stronger the carrier. And for the fact that he made a contribution to civilization, awards were given which he should choose one of them. The first reward is to increase the skill primitive bull method from the expert level to the master level. The second reward is to awaken the skill basic shooting. The third reward is to awaken the power of pulsation. Menkeo was a bit in a stupor, not knowing what to choose, and then he chose the awakening of the skill basic shooting, which was the most expensive among these three skills. Smiling slyly, Menkeo said to himself, if all this is free, why not choose the most expensive skill? And still smiling, she told Faison that he would send him to military school. His smile scared Faison a little. They approached the device with which they could measure their strength and find out how much it had increased. Chu asked Menkeo where he learned such strange techniques, to which he said he would tell about it later and told him to first check his ultimate impact force. And he gathered strength into his fist, just wanted to hit him. Suddenly someone called out to him to stop. It was the headman. He adjusted his glasses and said he and Menkeo left the lesson and returned 20 minutes later, and decided to measure his impact force. And looking menacingly, he asked who allowed him to do this. Chu was indignant and told the headman why he fancied himself a teacher. He had just had an epiphany of the son of the bull. Even a teacher wouldn't stop him, and why is he interfering? The headman grinned nastily and said that he had seen his performance of the power of the bull, and it was crooked and he was still far from the standard reception of the power of the bull. And if he really wants to use the impact force meter, he said that he should step aside and go work on the reception. Chu Faison wanted to attack him out of anger, but Menkeo held him back and asked the headman if so, maybe he himself would show them his standard performance of the bull power technique so that everyone could learn well. Taking off his watch, he said that he would show them what the real bull power was and hit the meter. From the impact, the device staggered a little. The meter showed 225 kilograms. All the girls admiringly began to squeak how strong he was, that he broke the record of their class with the first blow. He is developing so fast that he will be able to enter the best university. And even if he is smaller than Faison, but his impact force is 5 kilograms more. The headman grinned nastily and asked if they understood. Chu Faison was furious, but one classmate told him to wait a little and they would measure together, and turned to Menkeo to convince him. But he patted his shoulder and gave the go-ahead. But the headman shielded him with his hand, telling him to check with everyone else after the lesson. They started quarreling and Chu grabbed his hand and told him to let go. Because of his anger, he looked like an angry polar bear. The headman was a little confused where he got so much strength from. Chu threw him aside, gathering all his strength into a fist, hit the meter with such force that the elder was shocked by the strong wind of the blow. And even the legs of the meter rose from the ground from the impact. The impact force of Chu Faison was 785 kilograms. Everyone was dumbfounded. His indicator surpassed the headman's indicator, and he set a new record for their class. Menkeo played enough and began to say what kind of a mean one that secretly trained the bull superpower technique from him. Everyone was in a misunderstanding from the word bull superpower. Menkeo continued to say that it is impossible to hire teachers of the reception of the bull superpower for any money. But an increase in the force of impact by 10 kilograms, it's like plus 10 points as a result of the final exam. And innocently making eyes, he asked if Chu would teach him the superpower of the bull. Chu Faison was at a loss since he had taught him this technique himself. Menkeo said that he understands him because the time is not so much and there are still a couple of weeks left before the exam, and offered him if he would teach him, he would pay him with his resources for improvement. And then Chu Faison realized that Menkeo wanted to make money and had to play along with him, and already all their classmates wanted to study with him. And Menkeo suggested to everyone, why don't they unite and maybe they will create a training group bull superpower and everything will work out to pay for his services. Many agreed and started to join the group. The headman was furious. Then a sign appeared in front of Menkeo. It was written there that his proposal promotes class cohesion. Now his classmates can be more motivated to study and they will have a better chance of getting good scores on the final exam. In the future, they will be able to make a great contribution to civilization. And for that he got 11 contribution points. Menkeo began praising Chu Faison for how good and selfless he is. Besides, he is very strong. And he also takes his studies seriously. Why didn't the teacher choose him as a prefect? Everyone looked at the headman, who was still sitting on the floor in confusion. He glared at Menkeo, but he gave him his hand and said that he just said it was nothing serious. But the headman already wished him death inside. Rejecting his hand, he himself stood up and said that how could he think about such a thing because the headman is trying for all of us. Inside himself, the headman assured that he would definitely not let Menkeo go to university. Menkeo and Chu Faison climbed onto the roof of the school. They shared the resources they received through mentoring. Chu said that he could take everything since he had been devastated for a whole year, to which Menkeo said that it was better to share 70-30. Taking his share, Chu asked where he learned that technique from, to which Menkeo lied, saying that he had found a forum on the darknet dedicated to the science of life. This time I carefully studied everything about the reception of the bull superpower. He couldn't tell me about the spark yet. Life science includes biology, immunology, genetics, physiology, ecology, etc. And he added if he is worried about the danger of admission, then you can tell classmates that the bull superpower is a type of beta version and that of course there may be bugs, but they cannot participate if they do not want to. And Meng said that he just wanted to contribute and there was no need to force someone. Chu said that he would tell them so, ran to the exit and left. Menkeo collected his briefcase and looked at the landscape of the city. The city was large, beautiful and multifaceted. Menkeo began to reflect that he didn't like the fog before, because the fog sealed the city and prevented the Earthlings from killing enemies. He also doesn't like Longcheng City itself. Cramped neighborhoods, crowded streets, and the requirements for improvement are too strict. And noted that he was the same as all teenagers. I've watched too many movies and books about the old Earth, where students attend only 2 physics lessons and several dozen in mathematics literature, and it was enough for adults to work only 8 hours a day to earn enough money for a large apartment and environmentally friendly food. And then his eyes teared up. That land is now the homeland that cannot be returned, and the nightmare is tomorrow, which has not yet come. And in front of him now is his only home. And then the sign came out again and Menkeo began to receive contribution points for the fact that the primitive bull method is spreading among the residents of the city. And then Menkeo realized that even the indirect spread of progress also affects his contribution. He was pleased that he could be useful. Then the citizens were addressed. Through large flying ships, they turned to the citizens informing them that the latest news from the Municipal Meteorological Bureau. Fog is expected tonight and monsters will enter the city. According to their forecast, the main area of the appearance of monsters will be the area of the Chengbei metallurgical plant. The Survival Committee orders the Steel Dragon Corporation to immediately enter a Level 1 combat readiness. The rest of the districts are ordered to enter a Level 3 combat readiness. And they ask the citizens to follow the rules and be vigilant and ready to fight the enemy. People crowded the streets. Menkeo ran after the bus and barely managed to get on it. The headman saw this and grinned, calling him garbage. He was sitting in his car. The bus stopped at the Hulan district stop and Menkeo could barely get off the bus. When he entered his neighborhood where vendors were selling their wares to attract the attention of customers, he thought when, after his resurrection, he walked through this dilapidated market again, what he was thinking about were warm memories. Hearing those warm and familiar voices, he only felt calm. Watching the people in the market, he thought how much life is in full swing here. But suddenly his sister called him, asking for help so that he could help him lift a bucket full of crabs. He looked at her and smiled warmly and wanted to say her name, but then he remembered his past life again. In his nightmare, she was the witch of the dark night. Wherever she goes, she will bring with her only endless dark nights. In his vision, she was all in black and pressed her foot on his face. But then her sister brought him out of his thoughts, asking if everything was fine with him. And she added he looks like a mouse saw a cat in front of him. Menkeo looked at her suspiciously and thought that he did not know that his sister was of this type. And then, pulling a smile, he grabbed her by the shoulders and asked Xiao Cao if she had the strength, she would crush him. To which she innocently smiled and protested why he was asking such questions. She would not do such cruel things. But inside herself, she cunningly thought that if she had the strength, she would trample him. Menkeo thought that there must be a reason why she became a witch of the dark night. And I asked her if she was upset or dissatisfied with something about him, to which she innocently denied. But inside she was angry at her brother and called him bad. Then, outraged, she asked what she provoked him again and he still offends her. To which Menkeo slightly ruffled her hair and said, does a brother need some reason to hurt his little sister a little? Inside himself, he thought when she became a witch of the dark night, she immediately stepped on him. And now that he's stronger, he'll have a little fun. But then, with seriousness, he set a goal for himself that once he returned from that nightmare, in this life he would no longer allow her to become a terrifying witch of the dark night. and he made a promise to himself that he would make her the happiest and most beloved princess in the world. While they were walking home, they argued and quarreled a little. Xiao Cao indignantly shouted that she hated her brother, to which Meng Kao teased her by saying that he liked it when she hated him. Xiao Cao said that then, as compensation, she demanded from Meng Kao the meat of an armored Luthorc or she would tell her father, to which Meng Kao said that he knew his sister was worried about him, but he could carry him himself, which made Ta even more angry. When Xiao Cao came home, she immediately began to complain to her mother, saying that her brother was hurting her. Meng Kao greeted his mom. She smiled and turned to her daughter, saying that she constantly criticizes her brother, and holding an egg roll on one hand, she told them to eat soon. Then Meng Kao's eyes lit up and he stretched out his hand and took one of the rolls. When he was eating a roll, he burst into tears. Mom was a little confused, asking why he was crying, and his sister teased him and said that he just went crazy. And then, opening the door, their father entered the house and said why there was a noise that he had already heard Xiao Cao complaining about his brother from the street. And he added that she would turn on the TV and watch the broadcast from the battlefield did not start there. Right there on the TV they showed military armed tanks similar to crabs. It is reported that at 8:50 am the military group of assault combat crabs completes the deployment of a position in the north of the city. These iron crabs are the newest military development of their city, and Professor Qi Zhendong from the biology department of Longcheng University was invited to the show. And they asked him why exactly crustacean machines. He explained that the last 3 times when the fog descended, the main forces of the invasion were crustacean monsters. Then Xiao Cao switched to another channel out of boredom. There she saw a dark silhouette of a man jumping over the roofs of a glass building. She immediately recognized him, saying that it was Longcheng No. 1. She was so stuck that her parents said she was so obsessed with Master Luo Wu. But then the shaking turned off the TV and all the things in the house began to shake. Meng Kao said they were monsters. Through the emergency sirens, it was heard that the Tijun Faiyuan district was going into fortress mode. And then monsters similar to beetles invaded the area. Monsters were immediately attacked by people. There were a lot of them. Then the order was given to raise the barrier, redirect all electricity to the barriers and the high voltage support tower. And then the device opened up and a strong stream of electricity came out of it that he beat off many monsters. Meng Kao was shocked by the number of them. He was watching it all the time through binoculars. He thought that he had drunk all the dietary supplements, but was not sure if he could withstand such a battle. Father War came into the room and asked how the battle was going there, to which Meng Kao said nothing special yet. A grandmother with a white dog approached them, telling them to monitor the situation outside and she and a dog named Zubik would take care of them. The dog, corresponding to his nickname, was happily circling around Meng Kao's mom and sister. Meng Kao looked at his grandmother and said that she would worry about her safety. She pulled his ear for his words and was outraged why he thought she was already quite old and could not do anything. To which Meng Kao quickly began to apologize to her. But there was an explosion. One of the bug monsters was able to break the equipment that was studying the waves of electricity, and they all began to spread their wings like fiery wings in the color of dark pink. The father noted with fear that this is a kind of black fire beetles, flying flame beetles. And the father gave his son a machine gun and taking it for himself said that these bugs are not easy to overcome. You need to get closer and only then attack. It won't be easy to get through this evening. They started shooting at them. Meng Sao's father said that it was very difficult for them to get there, so they should only hope for luck. Meng Kao thought if all this drags on, many people may die today. And then a spark appeared in front of him. It said whether he was ready to start his first combat mission. The insect exterminator. At the bottom was written black fire bugs 0 divided by 10. Flying flame beetles 0 divided by 3. The reward for completing the mission is 15 contribution points and improving the basic skill by 1 level. And it began. His basic shooting skill has been activated. But then Grandma came up to him, holding him by the shoulder and said if he was scared, maybe she would try. But then Kao started shooting at the monsters by performing a triple shot and killed 1 flying fire bug. For this, he added +1 contribution point. The level of proficiency in the usual skill basic shooting has been increased by 0.8% for a total of 25%. Grandma whispered him on the head and praised him, saying that he shoots like his uncle when he was still alive. And Meng Kao thought if Grandma hadn't stopped him, he could have blown up this bug with 3 consecutive shots. And he kept shooting at the monsters, killing one by one. Meng Kao noted that the feeling of weapons from the past gradually returned. His father looked at him and said that he was better with a machine gun than he was. Menkeo confusedly said that because he was injured last year, it was difficult to train martial arts. Therefore, he practiced a lot with a gun. His father patted him on the shoulder and said it was hard for him, but then he encouraged him by saying that he should always keep himself in shape and show them what he's learned. They were shooting at these monster bugs. The father looked at him like that and said that no matter how many problems he had now, he still had to monitor his health. Menkeo assured him that he was fine, but he noted that something was wrong. Another terrifying monster did not appear. I had to find him. And then Menkeo saw a big frightening bug. He was big and you could tell by his appearance that he was the leader of the beetles. This monster beetle attacked everything. People destroyed houses. Menkeo realized that with his current level of shooting, he couldn't even injure him. To defeat him, you need at least a master level or even a perfection level. Having taken all the bugs to one place, that monster directed them towards people. The military people noted that something was wrong with this swarm, and this big bug behaves very strangely. And all the monsters started attacking people. The military tried to keep them away from the living area. All the military massively fought the bug monsters. Menkeo was also getting more and more contribution points by killing them. It was necessary to increase the level of shooting before the monster fully wakes up. Then the monster opened its wings even more and its wings looked like two big bloodthirsty eyes. The military realized that this is a super monster, and they started asking for reinforcements, saying that an unknown super monster had been discovered in the Tijanfayuan area. But the connection did not work well and broke off. At that moment, Keo's father told Meng to leave, taking his mom and the others, saying that that big bug could be a super monster. But Menkeo still shot at the monsters, and then he turned to his father that he should take everyone and run away from here. Menkeo knew these creatures. That's why I stayed. The big bug monster collected a large fiery heat and directed it at the military. Thick black smoke was flying in the air after the explosion. Because of the smoke, they couldn't properly aim at the monsters, and they all started shooting at the smoke at the same time. But the super monster still came out without a single wound, and then he directed fire rays from himself at his comrades. And then they went even more crazy and started attacking everyone. One of the beetles wanted to attack ordinary citizens, but a warrior was able to get ahead of him by plunging his sword into his head. Through the walkie-talkie, he said that the brigade of swordsmen was ready. It was impossible to allow monsters to get close to residential buildings again. Shouting Longcheng will win, they began the battle with the monsters. Menkeo was able to complete his mission at this moment, and for this I received 15 contribution points. Iskra asked if one basic skill could be improved by one level right now, but Menkeo said to wait, adding first he would put all the contribution points into the basic shooting skill and fill the progress scale to failure. Iskra showed that the usual skill basic shooting has been mastered by 100%. The level of proficiency has been upgraded to an expert, and the level has risen to master. Menkeo told Iskra to improve the master skill basic shooting one more time. Menkeo was covered by golden rays and his skill basic shooting was mastered to the level of perfection. Now he could see the vulnerabilities of the monsters. The wings of the super monster had golden powder. With it, he can increase the strength of other beetles. And his head shell was an organ full of nerve endings. It was an extremely sensitive place. And having found out his weak points, he loaded armor-piercing bullets and only wanted to shoot. But her sister was ahead of him, shouting that she had come to help him, and thoughtlessly shot at her little gun. But unable to withstand the pressure, she fell to the floor. Menkeo thought with horror that he had forgotten about this gun. And he remembered that as a child, Xiao Kao had assembled this gun herself and asked if it was powerful enough, to which Meng PDF then replied that it was too dangerous and for the time being he would keep it for her own safety. Menkeo wondered if he hadn't taken her homemade weapon from her back then. Then the super monster turned to him and noticed him, and started flying straight towards him. He could barely dodge while protecting his sister at the same time. The monster left a hole behind and began to destroy their house even more. Menkeo recalled with horror those memories where his sister in a previous life wanted to help kill a monster, but the shot attracted this terrible demon. Then their mother was seriously injured and went to the hospital, and then a series of misfortunes followed. Xiao Kao felt terribly guilty. Perhaps it was then that darkness was born in her. Furiously pointing his machine gun at this monster, he thought that this creature had destroyed the house that he had lived for 17 years and hurt his family. Now in this life he couldn't let it happen again and started shooting at the monster. And one of his shots hit him in the head. Because of this, his head is a little crushed. The monster was just furious and just wanted to collect a fireball to attack. But Menkeo managed to shoot him right on his own ball. From such a powerful explosion, the monster died and fell to the ground. The military approached him, checked him and reported that he had been eliminated. One of them said that Menkeo's father killed him because he used to serve as a sniper in the army, but he didn't think that he was still as strong. And now they started attacking the rest of the monster bugs. Menkeo's face was red and his nose was bleeding and he fainted from overwork. His father called out his name, but he was in his thoughts that for many years before the death of this monster, bullets had affected his inner supernatural power, causing a psionic riot, and thus he died of his own power, and he was sure that the nightmare could be destroyed, the future could be changed, and his fate was only in his hands. And then his sister ran to him from the pharmacy shouting that he did not die because she had not yet taken revenge on him, that is, thanked him, and she started giving him medicine. He opened his eyes and wanted to say something, but Xiao Cao beat him to it by asking if he was okay and began to painfully hiss his cheeks, and he was yelling at her to take her hands away because it hurts him. Mentally, he thought that she was really a witch of the dark night, pure evil. Grandma came up to them and asked if Menkeo was okay. He smiled and said that everything was fine, he was just tired, and having already looked at his father, he asked him to tell the others that he killed the super monster, and helped him keep his shooting skills a secret. And they all agreed, and his father asked him to rest already and Roy retreats. Meng, lying on the floor, looked around, everyone helped each other and were happy that they survived. Menkeo was glad that in this life he was able to save everyone. But then he was horrified and jumped up from his seat. After all, he did not receive a notification from Iskra that Menkeo was able to kill a super monster, so the monster could stay alive. Menkeo, despite the pain and fatigue, got up and went to see if the monster had died or not. His family is a little surprised why he got up. Menkeo noted that his body is still too weak, hidden injuries have not yet fully healed and he himself has not yet developed psionic abilities, even though he now has a perfect shooting level and knows about the weaknesses of the monster. But the connection with the body is not too stable, he needs a lot of time to get used to it. And this shot was made with inaccuracies and as a result did not hit exactly the target. And I thought with horror that his little sister would really become a villain after all. And fate was like a stormy river that a person could not change. When he came to the edge, he saw that the monster slowly began to come to life. Mayor Kale thought he had to change fate, and I just wanted to use the power of the bull to finish him off. But then a bright ray appeared from somewhere and penetrated into the monster's head. The monster was definitely killed now. He was killed by a man in a white cloak with his sword. Seeing him, everyone began to call him, saying that the Exalted One had come. Signs appeared in front of Menkeo where it was written that he was able to win 5 minutes, and the first Ascended managed to arrive before the super monster caused irreparable damage. And he played a key role in defense, and for this he received plus 1978 contribution points. And because of his correct approach with Jiakao, the probability that the darkness will consume him decreased by 2%. And the level of chaos in Longcheng City has decreased. And for this I received plus 50R contribution points. Now he can awaken such basic skills as Dragon Power and the Harvest Art Support skill. An hour later, the military divided the meat of the super monster. One of the mechs said that they should hurry up, otherwise soon the meat may spoil and may become inedible. Another one shouted to another saying be careful to collect black water because it is very expensive. Menkeo sat in thought while watching them. After a dose of high-energy solution and eating meat cooked by his mother, he was finally able to recover a little. And because he got a lot of things from Iskra, his head still hurt. He noticed that the flaming golden beetle possessed demonic eyes. This means that monsters are constantly evolving and the war is likely to get out of control. Menkeo had to cherish every minute and become stronger as soon as possible. He understood that now it would not be enough for him to simply possess the skills of the perfect level. Now he must constantly practice them in real combat to achieve unity between mind and spirit. But he was very perplexed how, without resources for improvement, he is constantly terribly hungry. And after killing several bugs, he needs to rest for half a day. How can you fight in a real battle at such a pace? Then Xiao Cao said that there is a harvest of beetles on the street. And Menkeo remembered that last night his mom was seriously injured by a super monster, and he failed the final exam. To earn money for his mother's treatment and for his sister's studies, his father took him with him. He didn't remember how many monsters were killed during the war, but there was enough work for 10 years. And working as a reaper is very profitable. Opening his table, he discovered 3 skills. The Ripple Force is 15 contribution points. The Dragon's Power is 21 contribution points. The Art of Reaping, 998 contribution points. The current number of contribution points was 2,478. Menkeo was delighted that the art of harvest turned out to be only 998 points, and since he has been doing this for 10 years in his previous life, awakening and raising the level may not be too expensive. Menkeo told Spark to exchange contribution points for the initial harvest art. It included the method of harvesting insect monsters, mammalian monsters, earth-like monsters, and reptile monsters, and he chose to upgrade the initial harvest art to the level of an expert. Menkeo noted that the initial harvest arts of the expert level and the basic shooting of the perfect level created something like a symbiosis, and this meant that he chose correctly. And he also realized that many of the monsters he remembers from his past life have not yet had time to evolve. This could mean that when these monsters appear in Longcheng, he can understand them better than anyone. This made him giggle maliciously, rubbing his hands. The sister was a little perplexed why he was laughing so vulgarly. Did he really have something planned? Menkeo's father was going to work, saying that he was going to harvest in the northern district. Menkeo said he also wanted to go with him. He thought that he might not be able to pass the exams well enough to go to university, and instead of looking for some odd job, he wanted to become a reaper. The father looked at him and noted that although his shooting skills are very good, but his physical form is not very, somewhere 80%. Because of this, he cannot go to university. Although it was a little dangerous to work as a reaper, but it is an ordinary job, and it was also possible to awaken one's inner strength in this industry. And he agreed, saying that he would familiarize him with the work. Sister Concern asked if he really wants to be a reaper. Menkeo rather thought that when he heard that his brother was going to a dangerous job, even the Witch of the Dark Night was worried. And in the end they are brother and sister, of course they have a connection. But the sister shyly demands her t-shirt, said if he finds delicious monsters, then let him bring some home. Here Menkeo was outraged because she was not worried about him, but just wanted to eat delicious food. While our heroes were driving through abandoned buildings, Iskra informs us that although monsters are disgusting, their corpses are one of the most important strategic resources for maintaining the state of Longcheng. It would be cool to just shoot monsters by turning their bodies into garbage, but such a move would waste ammunition, the lives of soldiers, without the slightest benefit. And in less than 3 minutes 5 years, Longcheng would have exhausted all the resources and would have died of hunger. The Exalted Ones can kill thousands of monsters with cold weapons, and thus the corpses remain almost untouched and the resources can be restored. It was not surprising that now the army is only helping in the fight against monsters, and the key role lies with the First Ascended. Everywhere they drove there were corpses of monsters. Menkeo's father said that working as a soldier is very primitive, but the Reaper will not be able to work well if he is not attentive and brave. And he added that Chao should not worry, and, looking at his father, slowly studied. He said he wasn't worried. The father incredulously asked how not to worry about what was in their area. And the real battlefield is not the same thing. 1,000 monsters, mountains of corpses, rivers of blood, how not to be nervous here. Menkeo calmly said that he really wasn't worried, but the father still stood his ground. Then Menkeo gave up and said that he had already wet himself because of the excitement. Iskra informed that the smell of high-level monsters can stimulate the central nervous system of the human body, and newcomers who have not been on the field are very likely to lose control of their bladder. And his father shoved him and said that he would tell him a secret so that he would not be disgraced when he became a Reaper. For the first time he needed to put on a diaper. Menkeo looked at his father strangely and said how he would get diapers in the middle of the night. And the father took out some diapers from where and said if the time came, he found a taming place and put them on. And Menkeo nervously said that he had suddenly changed his mind about becoming a Reaper, and he was confident that he could pass the exams successfully. The father laughingly said that was all. They stopped and all got out of the cars. Teo's father informed that Shen, the head of the firm, would decide whether he could become a Reaper or not, and, putting on masks, told him to show modesty. A fat man with overalls and a mask was sitting in the office. He was the CEO of the Jiexin Resource Recovery Company, full name Shen Rongfa. The director looked at them and asked Meng's father if this was his son, to which Menkeo's father told him that he had talked about him. He took off his mask and grinned nastily and said that Menkeo had an injury, and because of this, he cannot persuade his brother-in-law. Menkeo thought about how this fat ass walks through the doors. Menkeo's father, holding his hand, said that last year he received a minor injury, but it does not bother him anymore. And he said that he himself would be responsible for him in less than 2 years. Menkeo would become a good employee, and asked him for help. Then Menkeo saw the card between their hands, and he realized that it was a consumer card. Golden Dragon Shopping Center, in the balance of such a card at least 10,000 yuan. And he didn't understand, so his father had a lot of money. He can turn this fat director and return the card to his father. Shen Rongfa took the card, grinned maliciously and agreed, having said that his team is simply attached to the company, and who he takes as an assistant there has nothing to do with the company. And he gloatingly added that it was not necessary to arrange problems for him and his brother-in-law. The father said with fear that there would be no problems, and he told Meng Kao to thank him. Meng Kao bowed and thanked him. The director waved his hand at them, said that it was not worth it and ordered them to get to work faster. Meng Kao was still thinking about money and noted that his father could have large reserves, and it seemed to him that this fat director Shen Rongho was even more disgusting than Zuo Heijie. Meng Kao's father said that it was impossible to contradict the director, and then Mayor Kao remembered that the director had beaten his father in a previous life. Meng Kao asked his father why he did not open his own company because he has been working as a reaper for 10 years, everyone listens to him. Why is he still working for Jiexin? He said that it was not so easy to open his own company, and even more so he did not have the finances to start. And besides, there are no those who supplied the corpses of monsters. And patting his son on the shoulder, he said that in 2 years, when he gets comfortable here and his sister goes to university, then they can think about it. And then Meng Kao asked if he ever thought that there could be even more monsters. Meng Kao's father didn't understand what he was driving at. He replied that a freelance teacher had recently appeared at the school. According to him, soon the monsters will begin to evolve and appear before them even more fiercely. Even today, a super monster has appeared in their neighborhood. This is a new threat, but also a chance. If they want to get rich and rewrite their destiny, then they should take this chance. His father was a little perplexed and said that they would talk about it later, and now he needed to get to work. Meng Kao thought if he came back from a nightmare, then he should fix everything and should not continue to live a worthless life. He assured himself that he would become strong and make himself. They entered a building where there were a bunch of monster corpses, and all the employees worked tirelessly. The father joked and asked if he was wearing diapers tightly. Meng Kao did not reply to this. Meng Kao's father approached one of the monsters, took him by the tail and said that today they work with crustaceans, but mostly with yellow-striped scorpions. And all the employees started teasing him, saying that he hadn't seen so many monsters before. It was exciting. They told him to touch these monsters, tease them, maybe he's afraid of them that they might bite him or something like that. To which Meng Kao with a stony face said thank you. After putting one monster on the table with the help of technology, Kao's father said that they would work slowly so that Meng Kao could study everything carefully. I slaughtered one of his limbs, took out the meat from there and informed him that there was tender meat there. The shell can be reinforced and alloyed. Slime is an excellent fertilizer for the soil, excellent food for earthworms. Its venom can purify medicines and activate the exalted power embedded deep in the genes. The sting is extremely hard and it is used for sniper shells. It also has a corrosive and highly toxic effect. And he added that they are not expensive. Even if he breaks them, it can be easily fixed. Meng Kao took the tools from his father, took out a metal thing, began to tear the monster's flesh, and took out a thing like a thread from there. Iskra informs that after the main nerve cord is disconnected, it must be placed in a 37% solution of active neurocellular substances to maintain freshness. Meng Kao put it in the inside of the jar and continued his work. With the help of a 34-hash butterfly scalpel, he was able to separate the meat from the shell. This scalpel has the right curvature to perfectly separate the meat from the shell. A suction device with negative pressure will help to easily collect and store scorpion meat. And at the end you need to use a vacuum pump to collect valuable mucus. When he finished his work, Spark awarded +3 contribution points for his first resource collection. The level of mastery of the skill art of harvest has been increased by 1.1%. Meng Kao noted that he was a little unaccustomed since he had not worked for a long time. When he looked at the other side, all the employees including his father looked at him with shock. They were very surprised by his skills. Meng Kao scolded himself for being careless and showing his skills too quickly. And to rectify the situation, he said he wanted to tell them a secret. And everyone listened to him attentively. And Meng Kao said that since childhood he dreamed of becoming a professional reaper. Every time Dad went to work, he secretly avoided training. Especially after the injury last year, he realized that he had little chance of going to university, and he passionately began to talk about how he was even stronger in his desire to become a reaper, saying that he practiced like a madman. Teachers supported him in his own endeavor and he was able to achieve such high results. He grew up in the Reaper's house, inherited his talent in addition to this hard-working craft, and that's how he was able to hone his skills. And everyone started praising him that his school number 9 is considered one of the key ones, which is not surprising. They were also now sure that since their boss had such a son, they were in no danger. Mankeo's father was shocked and asked his son why he didn't know that he wanted to become a reaper. Mankeo confusedly said that he had always admired him and was embarrassed to admit it. The father proudly said that he had always seen how much he admired him. Mankeo thought that it could be considered that this time it had passed, and the father thought that his son was very smart and capable, but it's a pity that he was so useless and could not even help him to go to university to become exalted. And he could only help him become a reaper here at the bottom of society. Mankeo straightened up and told his father that now, having combined theory with practice, he felt something, and they started a new business. And while Mankeo was working, he found something interesting. There was a spherical nerve in the monster. The cost was 50,000 plus. Nervous weight is 20,000 plus. Mankeo realized that it was a golden ghost. The father asked. He even noticed about the golden ghost, to which Mankeo quickly rattled off that the biology teacher had told about him. And he told everyone to prepare the hilt number 9, 14 and 22, blades number 5, 8 and 11, also a crushing hammer, and a bone probe. In addition, he still needs a cooling stabilizer of 35% concentration with the addition of 1% mithril. And he noted that it is more likely that high-quality materials will be found in this golden ghost, and they need to be preserved properly. But the staff told him to leave it to the head of the goo. He'll figure it out on his own. Mankeo forgot about it because the golden ghost is a monster with a complex structure, and besides, the strength is almost equal to a super monster. Such monsters are usually handled personally by the head of goo or master who. However, this monster's current condition was getting worse, and this, noticing Mankeo, said that it was impossible to wait because the globular nerve and nerve cord had been in contact with the air for too long. The blood in the raft can be mounted at any moment, then the psionic forces will get out of control, and the MTSR can literally turn into a time bomb. After sniffing the mucus, my father also noticed that the smell was strange. One of the employees said that the damage of materials has nothing to do with them at all, but if they lose part of the harvest of monsters and Master Who finds out, then it will not be sweet for them all. Mankeo was indignant and thought that he should not allow losing such a valuable monster as the Golden Ghost when his father works for Jiexin and his income depends on the productivity of work. And having told everyone that he just wanted to start his work, he was stopped by one of the employees holding his hand. But Mankeo's father immediately stopped him, saying that he had found the Golden Ghost and if something happens, it is his responsibility. He angrily pushed his hand away and shouted that he had brought a child here and was babysitting him. Father Keo looked at the others and said if anyone else wants to leave, then he can leave, sarcastically saying that they don't want to burden anyone, for which he received a slap on the head from a friend. He hit him outraged by his speech and they will not leave them alone here to deal with this monster. And everyone else supported his father, saying that if they get rich from the Golden Ghost, then together if something happens, we will answer for it together. Mankeo looked at them, got motivated and started working. After cutting the raft inside it, he took out a yellow ball and shouted to his father to bring a cooling stabilizer. Everyone was shocked that Mankeo had found the spiritual globular nerve, and his condition was in good condition and still active at least 80%. And his quality is just perfect. The father warned Mankeo, telling him to be careful because the distant globular nerves are still very active and may not withstand strong shaking. Mankeo looked at the ball carefully, smiled slyly and realized that there was something more valuable there. The workers remembered that Mankeo had suffered a spinal injury last year and reported that the globular nerve is the best medicine. His father then blocked his son's path, saying that people fought and died for this harvest of monsters. Looking at him with regret, he said that he knows about his injury and knows that he wants to go to university, but he can't help him in any way. Even if they are poor, they cannot take someone else's. Mankeo was surprised by his words since his father did not understand his motives correctly, and turning around, he walked away saying that he was tired and would rest a little. Mankeo was thinking how to convince his father to open his own company. But then he heard the howl of some monster. After hearing this, Mankeo realized that it was the cry of a seven-eyed dragon wolf spider, and ran to the sound of screams to pick up his jackpot. But when he saw two people in front of him, he hid in front of the spider and realized that he was found before he was. The man with gray hair told his student Zushi that she had recently achieved success in the 7 Guan solutions, and this seven-eyed wolf spider would be an excellent practical task for her. The brunette girl was his granddaughter. Putting on gloves, she said that 8 minutes would be enough to deal with him. and taking a knife I wanted to cut the spider. Menkeo has been looking after them all this time thinking what she is doing. She doesn't know about the peculiarities of this seven-eyed spider. And when she wanted to cut the spider, he shouted not to do it. Both turned to Menkeo. He greeted the man by introducing himself, and making a special gesture with his hand, he said that his family was going to open a resource processing plant. The man thought that this young man knows the etiquette of the Reapers, and he said that the priest was worried about this taboo. If he is busy with the etiquette of the Reapers, then why is he preventing his granddaughter from reaping this seven-eyed wolf spider? Menkeo informed them that this seven-eyed dragon wolf spider was stuck in the evolution process between a first and second level super monster. At this stage, the structure of his body is very fragile and the poisonous sacs are thin, like the wings of a cicada. It is necessary to touch them and all the materials will be spoiled. If you work like this girl, then the whole crop will definitely be destroyed. The girl Zushi looked at his badge on his hand and realized that he was not a real Reaper, and it was no wonder that he did not recognize her grandfather Ningxi. The man said that Myokeo was well trained. Without even looking at him, how could he know that he was in the process of evolution? Menkeo replied that he had been studying this case for 10 years. He can be considered a seasoned Reaper. And what about the seven-eyed wolf spider and the seven-eyed dragon wolf spider? Although these two types are very similar, there are small differences in the death cry, and they are not difficult to distinguish. From such a statement, the man was a little confused. The girl flushed with anger, saying, "Who is he trying to intimidate here? Why, since her grandfather didn't hear anything, then some trainee? How could he hear?" Then Keo began to justify himself by saying that his words were true. Although outwardly this monster looks like a seven-eyed wolf spider, but the internal organs have already begun to mutate. And he added that if they don't believe him, they can take off his shell and make sure of it. Grandfather narrowed his eyes in disbelief and told his granddaughter to let him see. The girl angrily thought that her aunt had sent him on purpose to prevent her. And taking his weapon in his hands, Menkeo said if he wants to work properly, then let him look carefully. And Menkeo said he was ready. When he cut the shell, his hands trembled a little. Looking at this, Menkeo realized that he was traumatized and therefore he wanted to do it. And slyly flashing his eyes, he thought that here he was his first jackpot. Approaching the girl, he turned to her asking if she had 300,000 in cash on her account. The girls crossed their arms and asked him why. He replied that it was obvious that Grandpa Ning had problems with the nervous system, and they definitely need help to complete this harvest. Otherwise, they will be able to collect material only for about 300,000. And if they use his skills and experience, they will at least get perfectly distant bags of poison. And it can be increased to 1 million. And flashing his eyes, he said that fate brought them together and he charges only 30,000 for his services. The girl looked at him in confusion for a few seconds, then indignantly began to shout that even though her grandfather is old and injured, but he is still strong. Even if he needs an assistant, he has her. And they don't need a loser intern like him. Here her grandfather rarely interrupted her, telling her to shut up and come over. The one with dilated eyes looked at the cut part of the shell and said that the kid was not lying to them. The girl saw the monster's organs and said that it was not a seven-eyed wolf spider. And her grandfather confirmed it by saying that this is an extremely rare, and in the process of evolution, seven-eyed dragon wolf spider. And inside I thought that I almost failed because of some pathetic level 2 monster. Approaching them from behind, he looked at the monster and wanted to say something. But when the girl glared at him and he immediately fell silent. The girl said if he wants to say something, then let him not pull. He scratched his head and said that this is an ordinary seven-eyed dragon wolf spider, and he doesn't have any unusual mutations. It took them by surprise. The girl asked if he could really help her grandfather finish the harvest for 300,000. Menkeo said for 500,000. Grandpa said that if he really helps him and keeps the bags of poison at least 70%, but he will give him 500,000. Menkeo added that he is not exalted, and his powers and perceptions are at an average level so he can be an assistant for him. Inside, Menkeo breathed a sigh of relief. It's good that he quickly agreed and we need to make sure that he does the main work. And Grandpa, fixing his hair, said that Meng would be his first assistant and his granddaughter the second. And they all got to work. Grandpa wanted to say number 3, but Menkeo beat him to it by giving him the hilt number 4 with a rhombic blade number 7. Menkeo looked at him and said that he knew that he wanted to use the blade number 12 with the hilt number 3 to separate the lung book. But if you look at it, you can see leaf-like folds on his lung book. They are very fragile and if he hurries, then you can spoil the appearance. And he suggested that he start from the beginning with the vessels behind the pulmonary book, disconnect the circulatory system, clean up the neighborhood and only then proceed to the pulmonary book. And he added that the neighbors have become stronger than before, it will not be easy to break them. And I asked Grandpa Ning what he thought, and he looked at him and said that was exactly what he thought. A spark appeared in front of Meng Ko. It was written there for helping the elite citizen Ningxi to learn about the structure of the seven-eyed dragon wolf spider and increase his knowledge. Meng Ko received 15 contribution points. Meng Ko, flashing his eyes, thought at the expense of him, he just has to feed pretty. After some time, he could collect valuable materials in banks. Grandfather thought that reaping the harvest with Meng Ko as an assistant turned out to be very convenient. And perhaps it is worth teaching him the techniques of the 7 Guan solutions. Grandpa asked him what he would do in his place. Meng Ko, while moving his hand with a long scalpel, blue rays began to cover his hand, answered him that he would move from the bottom to the center using the 3rd solution from the 7 Guan solutions. Grandpa was very surprised. Inside himself, he thought that someone behind this young man was able to perfect the 7 Guan solutions. With the help of such a technique, it would be possible to reduce the harvest time by at least 5%. And he wondered who he was, who his teacher was, what forces and researchers were behind him. The spark plate appeared in front of Meng Ko again. It is reported that thanks to him, the elite citizen Ningxi further deepened his knowledge of the 7 Guan solutions, for which he received plus 50 contribution points. Meng Ko noted that the elite's ability to learn is high, because he just showed a couple of movements and he immediately understood everything. Grandfather looked at him and said that he had taught him the secret technique so easily, and I wanted to ask about his mentors. Meng Ko understood that he was an elite and now he would not be able to excuse himself with words about self-education. And quickly apologizing, he said that he had his own reasons why he could not tell him about his teaching. But he added that his teacher said that knowledge must be spread in order to elevate Longcheng, and in no case should it be selfishly hidden. From his words, Ning pouted, saying that he also asked her for 300,000. Meng Ko sighed and said that he was not familiar with them and she misunderstood him. These 300,000 will be his initial capital so that he can form his team and achieve the goals of contributing to the development of the city. Money was not needed by Meng Ko for personal purposes, but only to kindle the fire of earthly civilization in this other world. Grandpa Ning was greatly surprised by such a statement. After all, he said these words with burning eyes, is Meng Ko really trying for the sake of contributing to Longcheng? So young but with such a soul. And his granddaughter was very embarrassed by his words, because she did not think that he had such aspirations, and she doubted him. There was the last bag of poison left. He said he would hold it and Grandpa Ning would disconnect the nerve cord, and I thought that I should finish it as soon as possible before my father finished his work, and they were able to take what they needed. Grandpa asked his granddaughter Zushi how much money they had in their account. She replied that about 800,000. He told her to transfer all the money to Xiao Meng. The girl was no less confused than Meng Ko. He said something too much because they agreed on 500,000. Grandpa smiled and said that because of his illness, there is not much money in the account, but this technique that Meng Ko showed is worth more than a couple 100,000. And I told him to wait until he sells the materials and then they will talk in more detail. Meng Ko said it would be an honor for him. And to be honest, he has some research on the other 6 solutions from the 7 Guan solutions. And he added that according to his observations, grandfather will need about another year and a half to recover from the injury. And he asked to continue their conversation sometime later. Grandpa Ning was surprised how he knew exactly where his injury was. Meng Ko said that judging by his hands, he thought it was the poison of the purple royal viper. It hit the ulnar nerves of both hands, the radial nerve, and the middle one, and maybe even part of the optic nerve. Then Zushi cried out with tears in her eyes, since he could see his grandfather's injuries. How can he say that he will be able to recover in a year and a half? Obviously, this is an incurable disease. Meng Ko was in a misunderstanding after hearing this. Zushi asked with hope in her eyes if he could cure her grandfather. Then a spark sign appeared in front of Meng Ko. There he asked whether to start the first task of treatment. Time to complete, 1 month. Reward for the task. The reward will depend on the degree of healing of Ningxi, and it will be from 200 to 2,000 contribution points. Meng Ko chose to start, and he warned them, saying that he would try. But it was the poison of an unknown snake. It would not be easy. It is possible that it will be possible to find only random ideas. Grandpa good-naturedly said that it was also not bad. After all, now doctors have no treatment ideas at all. And I thought that for sure Meng would have to ask his teacher for him. And I thought how to thank him for it. And then an idea came to him. He said that he remembered that he wanted to open his own resource processing company. Did he want to sign a harvest agreement with the Thunder Squad? Mankeo thought that in the squad like Thunder where the exalted are, even crumbs will be enough for them to have enough for a lifetime. Mankeo said that he should thank him for his kindness, but the bags of poison are short-lived and other materials also need to be worked out, and he offered to deal with it first, then he would find Mankeo on Wufu Street and they would discuss everything. Grandpa Ning agreed, and then a notification about the transfer of 800,000 yuan came to Mankeo's phone. He waved goodbye to them and ran to the base. Grandpa said that this guy is not so simple and asked his granddaughter to make friends with him. Mankeo happily ran to the base thinking about how happy his father would be when he saw his bank account. And when he approached the building there were loud voices and screams. The director shouted at Mankeo's father about money. He shouted that 280,000 yuan for the purchase of a spherical nerve is a penny. Mankeo approaches one of the workers and asks what's going on. He replied that his father had contacted Shen Zhongfa and wanted to negotiate the purchase of a globular nerve. Meng Cha's father informed Director Sheng that they had just opened the Golden Ghost. When he heard him, he shouted, "Is it possible for him to open the golden pupils? If they broke something there, then uncle who will destroy them?" Mankeo's father informed all the workers that he was going to take the globular nerve to Brother Shen. And everyone started asking questions. One of them asked him that he was going to buy it from Shen Zhongfa. Another of them added that not only would he not give him an employee discount, but he could also crash. And even if he gives him a discount, he doesn't have any money. Holding the jar firmly in his hands, he said that for his son this is the only hope to go to university. The director hit the table with his hand and shouted that he was carrying it all. Mankeo's father wanted to say something, saying that it wasn't him, but the director hit him on the head, saying if it wasn't him, then who? And he started yelling that it was he himself who threw this thing, and a Zion and a Bao helped him frame him. Mankeo ran up to him and helped him up, and squatting down, he carefully began to see who broke the jar with a spherical nerve. And he saw the fat on the fragments and realized that because of her, this director could not hold the jar. And getting up, he turned to Shen, saying since it was not clear to him who exactly broke this flask, he said that they were ready to compensate half the cost in accordance with the rules. The director grinned nastily and said that it was at least 100,000 yuan and mockingly said that the kid clearly said without thinking. His face was covered in food crumbs, he looked ugly himself. The director told Keo's father that he wanted to take the material for himself and then broke it and now refuses to take responsibility. And he slapped him on the neck and said that if someone from his circles found out about it, then no one would contact him. Keo's father was scared and said that he would buy everything. The director smiled nastily and said that he agreed to what he was buying. And I handed him a 3-year second-tier contract so that he signed it. Then tomorrow he can pick up this thing. And he began to laugh loudly and ugly. The director told him to sign the contract for another 2 years and he would give him 100,000 in advance. He will buy materials for his son. Maybe he can even pass the exams. The father said he would sign and just wanted to pull his hand to the contract. Mankeo rushed to them and threw the contract away from his father. Flashing his yellow eyes angrily, he told him not to even hope.